Hello, hello, and good evening. Welcome once again to, can you believe it, lucky number 7. 7th episode of The Orbit. I am your host, Azrael, and I have screwed up already.
Hello, I've decided to manifest today as a Discord screen.
There we go. I have screwed up already.
No, it's called, building up tension and creating content.
So, first things first, guys. I'm your host, Azrael. I am joined today by my co-host, Mr. Rude Clouds. Normally, we would also be joined by Exile's Rhythm, but he had something come up last minute, and so we are going to have to trudge on without him today.
No.
So, with that said, how you doing, man?
I'm doing really, really well. I didn't get a chance to dive into the expansion as soon as everyone else did. I actually only started, I think it was the expansion had been out for 5 or 6 days by the time I played my first game and had opened my packs and everything. So I was about jumping into this whole new world of Hearthstone and how I'd sort of fare and how the games would go. And I'm so overwhelmingly happy to say, like, it's been such a positive experience. I've been having the best time kind of trying out different decks and seeing what's out there and just all the new flavor. Like, I'm doing very, very well.
So overall, before we even jump into the news and notes and everything else, like, since you did kind of jump into the new expansion late, like, what's your impression? How you feeling about it?
Well, that's a great question because I do want to mention this because I think it applies to a lot of people who were who before they even started playing, they're just how they, how this apprehension, like rotation and anxiety, I don't know the right way to phrase it, but this idea of, jumping into a whole new game almost, where so many of the cards that you were playing with are now just, null and void. That if you want to play standard, you're not going to be playing with those cards. So I think like a lot of people, that's where a lot of like the anxiety and the apprehension that I felt were stemming from. And I'm someone who, as much as I'd like to think that I'm creative in a lot of facets of my life, deck building is not one of them. So I'm a net decker. So one, it felt good to start a little later because that meant the meta was a little bit more solved than on day one. And so I could hop in and have a list that I felt comfortable with. And I was like, you know what, there's some meat behind this bone, which was really nice. And then jumping into it, I don't know. I feel like I'm waiting for the other shoe to drop, or however that phrase goes, because I've had a very positive experience and I've seen very low levels of the decks that I know are causing a lot of people grief. I'm seeing a lot of Treant Druid. And so that's the main one that's like, okay, this is like always it. Either it's going to swing my way quickly or it's going to swing their way quickly. There's never any middle ground.
Right.
And so that's been the only thing where I'm like, oh boy, I don't love this, but everything else has been absolutely like, I don't know. It's just been the best time, and nice to have something where you're going into sort of this fresh environment and have it just go well, and not the alternative where you're like, oh boy, I really, we're getting a continuation of some frustrations from the previous patch. I feel like they've done a very good job at this point of sort of, keeping things not feeling like they're so overwhelmingly one-sided or unpleasant. I feel like they've done, with few exceptions, they've done a very good job. So I've had a pleasant experience. What about you?
So far so good. It definitely feels fresh. It definitely feels different. It is exciting. I love tinkering with decks and deck building and just messing around with different archetypes and like getting crazy ideas. Like, I was streaming the other day and I was just like, I want to play this, so I made this, and I want to play that, so I made that. And good, bad, ugly, doesn't matter. There's so many different like avenues to explore, and I'm having fun with it. But I am a little frustrated because maybe it's probably a little bit to do with the rank that we're playing at, where people are trying real hard. So there's like, there's a whole lot of, like, I showed a stat on stream the other day when I was playing, and I showed it like the breakdown for the last, I think it was like 40 games I had played, and it was like 54% warrior. Yeah, so that was brutal. And that was all bomb warrior. It was all bomb warrior then.
Really?
Yeah, this was a week ago or whatever.
Okay.
Yeah, and then the last 36 hours or so, I've been experimenting with a deck we're going to talk about later, Control Shaman. And I got like, I want to say it was 28 games in. Of that 28 games, very close, just over 40% of the matchups have been Warrior, but not Bomb Warrior. Now it's Control Warrior, but we'll get into that more in the discussion. But other than people just kind of jumping on whatever the soup or the deck du jour bandwagon is, I'm having a lot of fun like with this all of these new decks to like tinker with. So I'm definitely having fun, even though I'm running into a lot of the same stuff. But we'll get into that in a minute. So now that we've kind of like talked about our initial impressions about the last week, let's just, before we jump into the rest of the show, we do want to touch on the regular things we like to open up with, which is a short news and notes section. There is a little bit going on, not a little bit. There's some pretty big stuff going on in the Hearthstone world now. Right now, we have the qualifiers coming up in Vegas, which shout out to Papa Jason HS. Papa Jason HS is a friend of EO, friend of the Eternal Orbit community, and many people who watch the show or listen to the podcast probably know him. He's on Twitch. He made the Vegas qualifiers. He won one of the qualifier tournaments, so he gets to go to the Vegas qualifier here coming up pretty soon. He did it with believe it or not, Token Druid, and so that's coming up. And then in addition to that, we have HCT World Championship coming up in about a week, the 25th through the 28th in Taipei. Mm-hmm. That's got a $1 million prize pool, which is just bonkers for a freaking kids card game.
Okay, all right.
First prize taking $250K.
Yeah. It's nuts, and it's good to see. It's good to see something like that, like that, having a sort of prize pool like that, and the weight behind a tournament. The way that Blizzard's throwing their weight behind this one, always feels good from like a player based perspective. Like just for the optics of seeing like, oh, this is incredible. It's a huge prize pool. It only hypes up the event and ups the ante for people, because they realize like, oh, the stakes are just that much bigger.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's a pretty impressive field too. Speaking of the field, there is the once again returning Choose Your Champion event. I think is how they call it, something like that, where anybody can log in with their Battle.net account and pick their champion, and then you get awarded prize packs with depending on how well they do. So the farther they get, the more prize packs, the more packs you get awarded to you for that. Is there? Go ahead.
Oh, please. Well, I was going to say an additional note that you're even more incentivized to watch just for your champion, but also because they'll enable what's called Twitch drops. So if you connect your Twitch account with your Battle.net account, which you can do through Twitch settings and then go to the Blizzard, there's a connections option. Connect your account with your Blizzard account. Then you'll I think you're guaranteed, if you watch for 4 hours, to receive, oh boy, it's either 1 pack or 4 Rostcon's Rumbles packs.
Nice.
And it's repeatable for every day that you watch. And then on top of that, they're giving away, and this is done randomly, which is very interesting, but I believe it's 2,500 classic packs per stream. Really? And so you just have the chance to randomly be given a pack, and the next time you log in, you'll see, wow, Eric, congrats on your free classic packs. So yeah, another more, just an additional way that feels good from a viewer perspective. Yeah. You get to enjoy the highest levels of Hearthstone possible, and also, get something on top of all of that for free. So I know what I'm going to be doing.
Right. I actually, that was news to me. I didn't catch that tidbit of it. So thanks for sharing that. So guys, make sure you go to, I think you can get right from the Blizzard launcher. You can click on the Choose Your Champion thing. You can log into the Blizzard site and then pick your champion, and then follow the instructions that he said, that Rude Clouds said about linking your account for those bonus packs. Awesome.
Yeah, it'll be nice. What you'll want to do is in the top right of Twitch, because I did this literally an hour ago, the top right of your Twitch where your profile icon is, click on that, go into settings. Don't do it now because, we need the viewers. click on settings, and then it'll take you to a main settings window. You'll have an option to go into a connections tab. Click on connections. There'll be a whole list of different, games and services you can connect to. Just choose Blizzard and you're good.
Nice.
Yeah.
Rude Clouds passing out the knowledge.
I just want to, up the competitive field. If we're getting those Rastakhan Rumble packs and those classic packs, just think of, the power level.
The good news is, though, is if you have like a Twitch Prime account, you get like all the Twitch Prime stuff, like the bonus goodies, you've probably already linked your account. You don't even realize it, but it's always good to double check. I know mine's linked, but it's kind of a secondhand thing with being a streamer.
And then a personal note, if you've changed your name since it will not automatically update. When I went in to verify, eJordan93 was still my Blizzard linked account. Nice. So if you possibly change your name from eJordan93 to Rude Clouds anytime in the past, I don't know, since you last connected, make sure to update that. You just have to disconnect and reconnect.
Nice.
You'll thank me later.
Yeah, or just go out and claim the eJordan93 name right now and get the free stuff on his behalf.
Yeah, and the honor.
There you go. Right. So what else is going on, man? I mean, that's all that's going on in the greater Hearthstone community. But what else is going on? Just I don't know, with EO.
Great question, because we do have a few things going on. I actually, one more quick note about Hearthstone. Sure. Is just to go over the fact. Oh, actually, no, never mind. I would be jumping ahead when I don't mean to be jumping ahead. So let me instead talk about EO for a moment and leave that as a teaser for a little bit. Right. So with EO, we do have a few exciting things going on. One, as you all are probably familiar with at this point, on our website, we have kind of routinely updated deck guides based on where the meta is either at or where it's trending and what we think is a good deck to position yourself with, and then some in-depth analysis on how to play that deck. What we'll have is actually our first guest article, and that'll be written by someone who's not part of EO, but someone who's very well respected in the community, high level player, someone that we all trust and think is probably too good to be using anything on our end. But we're currently in talks with someone to write out a deck guide and then host it there. So that's going to be really exciting because it's our first sort of partnership with someone. So we're all looking forward to that. On top of that, you've all kind of are familiar with the fact that we have a little VODcast/podcast. Very soon, we're going to be hosting all of our VODcasts on the website itself. So there'll be a specific section to watch any previous episodes, catch up if you needed to, you missed the day before's episode. And we're really looking forward to kind of fleshing things out on that end. So those are some big points. I also wanted to bring up a final note that our dear friend Blumplunk, I'm super stoked for this because Blumplunk is someone who streams pretty much right after I get off, but right after I get off, I go to bed because it's nighttime in North America. So Blumplunk is going to actually start distributing and creating daily YouTube content. And the crux for a lot of it is going to be based around the fact that they'll be playing a deck, going over kind of it'll be gameplay of playing that deck and then analysis on, what you want to be doing, how you want to be, mulliganing, what you want to do versus certain matchups, that sort of thing. So if you couldn't get enough of Blump as it is, you're going to get even more.
So in other words, there's quite a bit going on.
Yeah, we're pretty fleshed out. And that's just, this week.
That's just this week. I love it. Sweet.
Yeah.
Also, if you guys weren't aware, we're starting to put up the EO VODcasts, the Orbit VODcasts on the EO YouTube account. Soon they're going to be up on the EO website, along with the EO podcasts. Very, very, very soon. We're like this close to getting it finalized. So keep an ear out for that. And then once we have it all set up, we're going to make sure that they're up, hopefully within 24 hours of the show's wrap from moving forward. So so that's another big thing that we're working on too. Other than that, I think that wraps up kind of the news and notes, which, unless there's anything I'm forgetting, I'm ready to jump in to what we got going on today.
Yeah, I'm super, super excited to start talking about what will be kind of a meta and review, a meta screenshot, if you will, of the past week, what we've been running into, what we've been playing, what we're expecting, all the good stuff that I think everyone kind of just, I want to hear what other people think about these things. So I can only imagine that by that distributive property that people are just chomping at the bit to hear our thoughts.
Yeah, and heck yeah, one of the nice things about there just being the two of us, as much as we miss X this week, one of the nice things about there being the two of us, chat, if you guys have comments, throw them out there. It's gonna be a lot easier with just the two of us for us to grab a couple of those as we're talking, because we're gonna dive deep into the meta here in just a minute. One of the things we're gonna talk about today is the meta. We're gonna focus on it a lot because it has changed a lot. I mean, we're only a week into the new meta, right? And it's changed a lot just over the last week. And so if you have questions, comments, concerns, gripes, whatever, throw them in there. We'll pick a few of them out as we're going along. Just try to keep the subject that we're talking on at the time. That way, it'll make it easier to integrate the questions. But throw them out there because with just the two of them, it'll be a lot easier. Other than the meta discussion, though, something that we love to do now with a new meta, because a month ago when we were doing this, it was like we all knew the meta. Like it's been the same meta for 3 months, right? But this is a brand new meta, right? There's all kinds of stuff, and so we want to do weekly deck showcases. And so we did one last week, and that was like predictive, right? Because it was like 24 hours into the new meta, and we're like, okay, this is what we're going to be playing, and we'll see what happens. Part of the fun of the new meta is trying these new decks, and we got a couple new decks today to try, which were not the ones we talked about last week. So we're going to be talking about that. And do we have something else going on too?
Aside from going over our previous decks and kind of giving updates, oh boy, you might need to help me out with this one. Do we have anything else, or is that just a question in general?
It was a prompt.
Yeah, I figured it was a prompt
for the weekly Twitter poll question.
Okay, and the weekly Twitter poll. There you go.
Yes. Which is, what is the Twitter poll question this week?
The Twitter poll this question is arena based, actually, which is the first time we've done that. I am actually going to put a quick link in the chat for everyone who would like to vote. A recent change that happened is now every normal season for arena top 200 rankings would be after a month. So just be a month of gameplay after people tally their best consecutive victories. Then they would have the leaderboard. What Hearthstone has now implemented is starting April 9th, so there actually was a little 9 days where there was not a leaderboard being taken into account. But starting on April 9th up until March, April, May, June 9th, I can do this. It's going to be a 2-month leaderboard process where it's a 2-month season of everyone's best 30 consecutive games, and who comes out on top from that. So the question mostly is, how do you feel about that change? Do you think about, do you prefer having the 1-month season or the 2-month season? The poll is up. We'll give kind of our in-depth analysis of that and what we think personally after the, once we get to that point. But something that I'm excited to talk about, given that we don't delve too much into arena here.
So please click over on Twitter real quick while you're watching the show. Throw your 2 cents in there. If you got a comment about it, throw it in there as well. If we get a good one or two, we'll read those as well.
Exactly. I'm and one quick note about it. I'm actually very surprised about the direction the poll is going, to be honest. So if anything, that should incentivize you to click on something so that you can see where the poll is at right now and know my thoughts going into this.
Interesting. We'll see how it plays out.
Yeah.
Okay. So with that, I think we're ready to dive into it this week, huh?
I'm super excited. As I mentioned, it's just nice having such a there. I know Tris had mentioned the diversity of this meta already being so much, it's just so much more attractive to the game itself. You feel so much more, you just feel so much more open. You feel like the possibilities out there and what you may run into, some of the cards you may even run into. It's always just like, I don't know. That's the exciting part for me. That's what gets me excited.
Yeah, it really is like a crapshoot. Like right when you think you know what's going to pop up, it's something completely different. And you'll see, like, I can't. How many times I run into a paladin? I'm like, oh, it's mech paladin. Nope.
Yeah.
Oh, it's secret paladin. Nope. This time it's gonna be dragon. Nope. You just never know what it's gonna be, and it's absolutely bonkers. And people are just trying everything right now, and seeing they're throwing everything in the fan. They're seeing what sticks.
Well, and there is one other side to that coin because at a certain point, people start to figure out. I mean, players will just figure out soon, once a meta has been, or once a new set has been released, what's really sticking out. And so we can talk about the fact that there is diversity, but we can also talk about the fact that there are certain decks that are kind of taking over a little bit more than other ones. And so the first thing I thought would be nice to address is kind of the elephant in the room, which would be the fact that people can't stop talking about Token Druid and people can't stop talking about Bomb Warrior.
Yeah.
Two decks that kind of came onto the scene. I'm not going to say explosively, but
the puns.
Very
we don't like puns here.
Yeah, they showed up very tree-like, and you just, no matter where you go, you're seeing some variation of these two decks at pretty much all levels of play. So we thought, hey, you know what? Let's get it out of the way. Let's talk about it because I feel like it's going to sound like we're sidestepping the issue until we address it. So we face things head on here at Eternal Orbit.
Yeah, you cannot talk about the meta right now without talking about these two decks. Even what are we? We have full 9 days into the meta now, and Token is still one of the most played decks on the ladder. Bomb Warrior
slammed.
is right there with it. I mean, and even still, and excuse me, I was convinced that Bomb Warrior was going to settle somewhere around tier 3 deck.
Mm-hmm.
But regardless of what tier it is, it's getting played a ton right now. I guess the first question is, let's focus on one of them right now. Let's focus on Bomb Warrior right now because I think that that Token Druid is going to be a little bit more of the hot button issue.
Yes.
If I had to guess. So let's focus on Bomb Warrior real quick. And why don't you start us off? What are your thoughts about Bomb Warrior?
So here's the funny thing. In total, I'm very aware that Bomb Warrior is getting slammed because people keep telling me it's getting slammed. So I have to, and I trust people. I don't think they're just going to lie to me as part of some larger conspiracy. So Bomb Warrior is seeing a fair amount of play. My own personal experience, I have run into Bomb Warrior. I couldn't throw out a solid number, but let's just say that it maybe, I don't know, less than 5% of the games for sure, probably closer to like 2 to 3% Bomb Warrior. It's very, very minimal. And what I've even seen when I've gone against it is the power level seems so low. And I agree with you. I think tier 3 might even be generous, but I think we're both in agreement that it's a deck that's seeing play, and I think people are focusing too much on these, on like wow, they drew 5 bombs in a row, like that's incredible, and some of the control factor that it has to be able to put so many bombs in someone's deck. But I think it's not solid enough to really keep up with where the meta is going. And so I think the fact that just it saw so much exposure from the beginning, the fact that it's the first deck we're talking about means people are aware of it. And when people are aware of a deck, if they're like me and they're a filthy net decker, they're going to see the numbers and say, you know what, I need to start playing this. And they're going to keep hearing people talk about it as being a powerful deck. So they're going to want to play it more. But I'm right with you. I don't think it's anything really to write home about. And I'm honestly not worried about it. So if people keep playing it, I will not have a problem. Because so far, I think my win rate has been overwhelmingly positive against Bomb Warrior.
I have complicated thoughts about Bomb Warrior.
Okay.
I'm going to be brutally honest with you, and people aren't going to like what I have to say, but I got to keep it real on this one. It's kind of a brand thing, but just in general, I got to be honest.
Okay.
I think the worst part about the deck is that it literally turns the game into a crapshoot. It literally feels like a deck that is designed to make people better at the game than they should be, because it negates a lot of skill. Because here's the thing, and there are people that do this, they play the even worse version of the deck, which is like the version that has like Elake and like runs Sephorian bombers. It just goes all in.
They lean in.
They go all in on the bombs, and they try to get like 16 bombs in your deck, and all that does is create a crapshoot, right? Like they basically throw everything they have. It's like, it would be like in a sword fight or like a duel, like knights dueling, like throwing your shield down and just going two-handed hacking at your sword. Like you're overcommitting. Yeah, you might get sliced in half, but you might win, right? So they're employing these like all-in strategy, which basically is get as many bombs in the deck as your opponent's deck as you can, and just hope they blow themselves up before you die. And it basically has turned the game into Russian roulette. It feels like the most coin flippy thing in the world, and you know this because you and I have had this conversation before. Anybody that's watched The Orbit or has tuned into my stream on a regular basis knows that the one thing I cannot stand in a game like this is an uninteractive mechanic, right?
Yeah.
You know, once those bombs go in your deck, there's nothing you can do about them other than to swap your deck out. Which people are going to be like, oh, well, you just play Archivist. Well, if they put 9 bombs in your deck, you're probably not going to live to turn 9 anyway to get to turn 8 to get Archivist in your deck anyway, right? And that feels...
Rafam would like a word with you, by the way.
Okay, well, turn 7 isn't much better than turn 8.
Of course.
So it feels like a very... It's replacing the OTK mechanics, which are much in the same vein of there's nothing interactive about it. You just get the certain combination of cards that you need, and you win the game. Period. There's nothing the other person can do once you have them. That's why, and I don't like that mechanic. I think it's a poor design from a game standpoint. The comment has been made before. Like with Mechathune, no card should ever have the words written on it literally or implicitly win the game. It just shouldn't. Mm-hmm. It should not happen. It's bad card design, and whenever you have that, there's a reason why these decks are 50%, right? Because they're coin flip decks. And they trade like skill and deck design for random, right? If you get the cards you need in the right order, you win. If you don't, well, you play another game. And it's just it's not fun to play against, and I don't like to see it in the meta. And it's very frustrating when you're trying to play a game where it's like it doesn't matter how skillful you are. And we've all had it. Like I'm sure anybody that's played Bomb Warrior more than 5 times has had it where they've had 20 or more life, and they have lost from drawing multiple bombs in a row. I've had lethal more than once, and I've drawn 2 bombs in a row and just cost me the game. And where's the skill in that? Like, what am I supposed to do? Not draw cards? I can't stop myself from drawing cards, right? So it is a very, I hate the design of it, and I hate how it makes me feel about the game. I really, truly do. Mm-hmm. That said, like thematically, it's a really cool idea. But mechanically, to me, it is the epitome of all the things that I hate about games like this.
Yeah. I think you bring up an interesting point too. Because again, I think we've pretty well treaded the ground at this point. I think where a deck like just hard leaning into Bomb Warrior fails versus considered Mechathune or anything, and a lot of these cards that have the fun flavor text, but end up falling short is the fact that consistency is just like king when it comes to card games in general. Hearthstone is the only game that I've really put real time into for card games, so I'm just going to emphasize it here. Mm-hmm. But that's the main thing. The fact that people will talk about all kinds of decks that have, these exciting sort of payoffs. They'll mention 5, 6 card combos that are possible and are exciting to think about. But I think the reason we're seeing Bomb Warrior fall so short, and I think the win rate will keep going down the more the meta establishes, is the fact that it's not consistent enough to keep up with some of these other decks that we're seeing that are, getting these much higher win rates. I know Tris mentioned in the chat real quick, Dr. Boom definitely is a big enabler. I think you could play a couple Warrior decks right now, some that maybe aren't even seeing any play, or very minimal play at least. And the fact that you run a card like Dr. Boom is what's going to carry you. So when you've got arguably the most powerful card in the meta right now, as one of your staples, like imagine having, a Deathstalker Rexar when nobody has access to hero cards. Like, yes. That's yours. Like it's obviously not to that level, but it's that same idea of just, at a certain point, Warrior is so stacked with what it has that it enables a bad deck like Bomb Warrior to exist purely off the strength of those other cards.
Yes.
So I think that's what we're mostly seeing, and that's why I think it will fade out eventually.
Yep. And you actually kind of hit on another point that I wanted to make. This is where the confliction comes in, because I actually think that bombs have a place in decks. I actually think they fit in decks, but not in the way that they're being utilized now. right?
Yeah.
Like I envision Control Warrior kind of ending up being almost leaning. Like, it's still going to be Control Warrior, but it's going to lean a little mid rangey because it's going to have like two of the, what are they, the wrench, whatever the wrench weapon is that throws the bombs in there, like throwing a couple of those in there for that little extra burst. I can see that, right? But these combos with the Elix and the goblin, whatever,
the Sephorian bomber,
yeah, and then the Sephorian bombers, where that is just, it's too over the top. And that's, but those aside, the reason why I have the mixed feelings though is because the bomb mechanic is actually kind of good at dealing with another deck that's starting to rise up now, which is, we're starting to see Mecha'thun decks coming back. So
yeah, I wasn't even aware this was a thing, and that's what I get for a couple days off.
Well, see, this is why you need to lurk in my channel more often, because if I'm on and there's a Mecha'thun deck that exists, I will run into it. That's just what happens when I play.
Exclamation point! What is it?
Algorithm conspiracy.
There we go.
Algorithm conspiracy. Yep. If you exclamation point algo in chat right now, and you'll get it right now. There you go. Thanks, Ash. Ash is on it. But yeah, so I have a tendency to run in those. So it does, theoretically can counter those, except for the fact that they tend to have like 60 life because it's a warrior. So
yeah.
But so like I said, I have mixed feelings about it because I like the mechanic. I just think that this all-in version of it is like, it's over the top. And it makes for, but that's shame on Blizzard for enabling it. Like they didn't need to put so many in the deck in the game, right?
Well, yeah, of course. You put the carrot in front of someone's nose.
Well, and the worst part is the fact that, like, because the hero power boom exists, and Omega Assembly exists, you can discover more bomb mechanics, right? You can get more goblin, clockwork goblins, right? So you get more of those and throw even more of them in your deck. But I think overall, the bombs will find their way into a reasonable deck. I just don't think that the current version of it is sustainable. I feel like it's a crapshoot, and that its initial success relied on the fact that people were overwhelmed, they didn't know how to counter it, and it was just so excessive in the amount of bombs that was throwing in your deck that that I think it kind of falsely inflated the deck, and that's why you've seen it like die down. Like even now, I don't see it as much. I when I see Warrior now, and I played. I was telling you and I were talking before the stream, and I played 28 games with the deck that I'm going to talk about in the showcase today, and just over 40% of those were Warrior. But only one of them was a Bomb Warrior. All the rest were Control Warrior. And half of those were Mecha'thun.
Oh, boy.
Yeah.
And it's just wild, because we are going to be having this exact same conversation about Control Warrior next week. We can't get into it because we will inflate the show too much. But, Control Warrior really is the end game. And I think you're right. I think the same way that even with Odd Warrior, where people were starting to run more greedy Odd Warrior decks, you'll start to see decks that are more bomb variants. And you'll see probably people, during tournaments, they'll say, hey, this is the more fatiguey, more control-y version of Warrior. This is it runs some bombs. This is a little bit more aggressive, that sort of thing. I think that's ultimately where we'll end up.
Yep. And the other thing that you mentioned that actually plays into the discussion about Druid too, which is the cards are so strong in both Druid and Warrior right now that it can enable terrible versions of the deck that shouldn't exist but can, because their other cards are so strong, they can make up for the deficit, right? Like I think this is a good time to transition to Token, unless there's anything else you want to talk about.
No, I think that's perfect. I think we really hit bomb into the ground for that.
Nice, yeah. So, well, hold on. Before we move into to Druid, overall impression. Do you think Bomb Warrior is a problematic deck? It's going to die down, or it's going to settle comfortably somewhere else? Like, what is your overall impression of it?
I think, if it's going to see any variant, I think it honestly, I think a control deck could afford to run with bombs is maybe 4 cards total, 2 pairs of whatever. Right. I think any more than that, they're sacrificing probably too much. So if it's going to exist, that will be the end point. I think that the version that we're mostly seeing, or at least the version that a lot of people associate Bomb Warrior with, that's going to honestly go by the wayside to be sort of the fun deck for a lot of people. But it's like, think of a much worse Shutterwalk sort of deck,
Right.
where you're relying, on this damage that's coming out of nowhere. Like, that's what's happening with the bombs, is you're just pulling them out of a hat. So I'm not concerned about it, but I'm happy if people continue to play it. What about you?
I agree largely. I think in its current form, it's at best a tier 3 deck. I think people are going to realize that it's at best a YOLO deck. Like I said, guys, honestly, and I'm not saying this because I'm trying to be like edgy or like a dick. I honestly
Edgelord.
think, yeah, exactly. I honestly, when I look at this deck, I go, this is a coin flip deck. This is Russian roulette. This is a deck that is designed to give people a deck that can win any matchup, because it negates skill by its design. But you're going to lose half the time because it's literally Russian roulette. You're flipping a coin, and if that's how you want to spend your time, cool, have fun. Wasting hours, going up a couple ranks, going down a couple ranks. You might get lucky, every once in a while, and you get some consistency out of it. But once the metal settles, I can't see it being a legitimate deck. That said, I stand by what I said. There is going to be some inclusion of bomb warrior or bomb mechanics in either mid-range warrior or probably in control warrior. But like I'm even more hesitant, because warrior has so many strong cards, to say that there'll probably be 2 cards. One of the whatever the wrench is called, and 1 Elic. No. And that's it. Because the Elic also gives synergy with the Archivist, for example.
The mana cost is a little awkward there, but it is true.
But I mean, the Warrior has ways to protect it, and if you're in the super late game, it is a backdoor possibility. But I can't see being more than 2 cards. So it's gonna be something like the 2 weapons, or like 1 weapon and an Elic, and that's like it. Because they just got too many other good cards to put in their decks. Which we'll get into when we talk about some control warrior in a minute. But transitioning into the druid conversation.
Yeah, let's get into the more scary side of it, and the more real threat that I think we're both aware of.
Oh yeah, the thing I wanted to say that kind of like connects the two is that the cards in druid right now for this particular deck are so strong that it allows some crazy bad versions of the deck to exist. I'm sorry, guys, but Archmage Vargoth is not a good card in this deck. It is not.
Oh, really?
I don't think so. Here's where that card, like, here's the strength that, to me, where that strength that card relies. You play it on 4 because you're token druid, so you control the board to 4, right? You just, I mean, how many times has this happened? They've got 2 minions on board on 4. You've spent everything that you have to kill their board, and they still got 2 left, and it's going into turn 4. They play Vargoth, you've got nothing, right?
Yeah.
If you have an answer, you might have a chance to win. If you don't have an answer because you just spent all your resources, you probably lose the game.
Yeah.
Right? That's the strength of that, right? But honestly, it's a 4 mana do nothing card. It's a 4 mana 2 attack minion. I mean, it's like it doesn't do anything unless it lives, right? And if you run a 1 mana card, you can just end it, right? Or a 0 mana card. If you run a silence effect, or if you run so if you run the 0 mana silence from priest, if you run a 3 mana owl, if you run a earth shock, right? You just kind of, it's done, right? Or if you're playing a hunter,
strong position,
so to me, it just doesn't feel like a good card in that deck. And then you see even crazier like combinations where people are putting the goblin that summons the 2 microbots. They play that.
Oh yeah, I've been seeing that.
Yeah, and they play that, and they play the Mecharoo because they're trying to play around bomb warrior or control warriors.
Just a little extra stickiness and all that.
Yeah, kaboom bot thingy that clears the board. They're like trying to play around that because they're mechs, right?
Yeah.
Like those cards don't belong in that deck. They've got enough synergy in the deck. To me, I don't like those cards in that deck. I think it's too gimmicky, right?
Yeah, Mecharoo is not needed.
because the cards in that deck are so strong for what the deck does, they can afford to have those kind of suboptimal choices, in my opinion, and get away with it. That's when the deck is really strong.
Exactly. The fact that there's other tools that can bring it above the point where it's still, at that point, it's not necessarily going to be dominating the same way that Token Druid, when built out fully properly, is dominating. But the fact that it can still hold its own and probably have a favorable win rate is gross. Knife Juggler is another card that comes to mind that I honestly don't think from what
Doesn't
I've seen,
belong.
doesn't seem powerful enough. But I've been seeing it often enough that's clearly on a few lists that are available.
The only
I am
reason I
gonna.
can go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say I'm gonna disagree with you on Vargoth though. I've seen enough Vargoths go off, and it could be, again, this is all going to be in my own personal perspective.
Mhm.
And I am playing a lot of decks, like full disclosure, I'm playing Secret Mech Paladin right now.
Mhm.
So a lot of decks that don't necessarily have ways to address a Vargoth
Mhm.
coming down on 4. That 6 health I think is so deceptively powerful.
Mhm.
I'm sure most people are going to see that and be like, okay, 6 health for 4 mana is a it's a higher than normally standard health cost. But the stickiness it affords you, I think, is it's absolutely it's so powerful. And then who's to say you need to play it on 4 anyways? The nice thing about Token Druid is your turn 4 can be filled with a couple different things. You can still flood the board at that point with your minions and set up for Soul of the Forest, I believe is the card.
Yes.
Or a couple different options. You can put raptors on the board. You have a few things that I think you don't necessarily. It doesn't feel like it has to be dropped on 4. And the longer you hold on to it, I think the more absurd it can be. But it's just the fact that you have that flexibility that makes it such a gross card to me. So, in my opinion, from what I've seen, in this past week, I think it's essential for the deck. But I do respect your opinion, and I think I can see the other side of, this deck could be so much. You're just refining it that much more by getting rid of it. So I can see the point of that.
If my point is, it feels like a win more card.
Yeah.
Like on turn 4, I mean, think about it like this: if the deck plays out the way that you want it to on turn 4, I think my opinion is that you want to go wide, and if you're not going wide, then you want to play Soul of the Forest on turn 4 to give yourself stickiness, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like if you've got 2 or 3 minions on board, why wouldn't you just push that advantage? Especially since board clear exists, right? But it's because the card hasn't a high enough reward, right? And like you said, if they don't have an answer, it's still a 4/6 or whatever, or 2/6 or whatever.
2/6.
Yeah. So it still is a 2/6 for 4 is what I was trying to say. So yeah, there is that stickiness, but again, in a deck like that, you want to go wide so you can buff everybody in Savage Roar, because the wider you go, the more value you get out of your buffs. So to me, it feels like a win more, like a gimmicky card. That's just my opinion. I mean, obviously it works, but
this is the most respectful disagreement that you'll ever see. By the way, everybody.
Right. Well, we're talking out the idea. Like, I mean, and I think both positions are true, right? And that's because the strength of Token Druid allows them both to be true, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you're not going to be hurt for putting it in your deck, and you're not going to be hurt for taking it out of your deck.
Yeah.
The thing that frustrates me with Vargoth, I think, is the fact that they gave it to everybody. Everybody just has it. So, so there's no reason why you wouldn't put it in your deck. Since most people don't have all of the cards, they're going to put it in there just because it's one of the strongest cards that they have.
A fun thing to revisit would be looking back at what common legendaries they did release and thinking what should have been in Archmage Vargoth's place.
Yeah.
Because I agree. I think it's strong enough to be considered a meta-defining card.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. In the right deck.
Of course.
In the right deck, But this would be like the equivalent almost of like putting Lich King in your Token Druid, right?
Which would,
like which you're not going to do, all right?
No.
I mean, why? Would you rather have that, or would you rather have another twin spell forest 8 mana, put 5 dudes in the card? The card we all thought was going to be bad, which is absolutely soul crushing, right? Mm-hmm. That card, I would rather run 2 copies of that because it does what the deck wants to do, right? Yes, Lich King's a strong card, but that card does what the deck wants to do. Vargoth is a strong card, but it doesn't really do what the deck wants to do, which, in my opinion, which is go wide.
Yeah, it's tough. We could probably debate this all day. Mm-hmm. The thing I do really like about this is it provides I don't know. I've seen Token Druids run out of steam pretty quickly, and I've seen Vargoth provide some additional buffer for them. And I think that's where I'm holding it, because like if I'm playing kind of a range mech secret situation, I can usually hold the mid game to late game pretty well, and then usually before things get too late, that's when I'm cruising. But I've seen enough Vargoths come into play where normally I should be able to take over the game, but the fact that all of a sudden they get this extra +1/+1 on their minions, or this extra what are some other things that we see? It's usually the +1/+1, or even the fact that they draw an additional 3, or they put an additional 3 cards in their hand, that sort of thing. I've seen it come off where enough times where I'm like, you know what, I don't like seeing someone who's playing Vargoth.
And I guess maybe I'm coming from the standpoint of that, like I expect the Vargoth and I'm prepared to play around it. You know, like when I play like my control shaman deck, I run 2 frogs and I run 2 earth shocks.
Oh yeah,
right. You know, when I play mid range hunter, I run 2 deadly shots. I run 2 marked shots. I run 2 kill commands. Right. I'm running things in order to like focus on killing that card. And I'm actually going to start teching in when I start playing more mid range. When I start playing more hunter again, I'm going to start teching in a hunter's mark again, just to make it easier to kill that card. But if you're targeting that card, right? Like I've seen this happen a lot of times, right? Where I kill their Vargoth and they just quit, which by the way is wrong. Your deck is really strong. Don't fucking quit.
The fact that some people don't run Vargoth is enough to tell you can keep going.
Yeah. So yeah, it's a strong card. I could very well be wrong on this point. I just think that it is like falsely inflated in that particular deck because the strength of the cards in that deck. If it was that strong, it would be in every deck. And it's not.
I'd be curious to see the draw rate plus the win rate of a card with like when Vargoth is played. We have obviously the metrics to do that, but not that we have to do that live.
I'm actually going to look at it right now while you're talking. Continue.
Oh, please do, because I was even going to say, because this has turned into now us talking about Vargoth when there's a much bigger, much scarier presence in our, which is just the fact that Token Druid has been dominating. I do want to make a quick transition just to talk about the fact that
52%.
Wow, really?
Yeah, it's actually one of the lowest win rate mulligan cards. Yeah. Savage Roar, 73%. Blessing of the Ancients, 66%. Evil, this is a different version of the deck, but this is the one that I clicked on. Evil Cable Rat has a higher percentage. It's 65%. Dreamway Guardian, 61%. Crystal Song Portal has a higher percent, 53%. Acorn Bearer, 72%.
Do you think someone should be keeping Vargoth in their opener?
Well,
because I think it's too important to establish yourself on the board to begin with.
How often I see it is played on curve.
Yeah.
And the only way you're playing on curve is if you're keeping it if you have it or you're digging hard for it, right? Like I see it on curve enough. I think people are and they're probably keeping it mistakenly because it's so powerful. But that's it's one of those things about it's like why people play Bomb Warrior because it's a trap. They think it's stronger than it is because it's such a swing card. They know just like in Bomb Warrior, they know if you can't kill their Elic, they win the game, right? Because if you can't deal with their Elic, they get 1 charge off. You probably lose the game. Right, I've had that happen before too, where I've silenced or killed their Elic and they just quit because they don't know how to play the deck if they can't get 4 extra bombs in your deck.
The Yahtzee.
Yeah, the same thing with Vargoth. They don't understand that the deck works without Vargoth. Vargoth, like I think it's correct if you put Vargoth in as if I draw it, great. If I get synergy off it, great. But I'm not going to hammer it out on turn 4 because I would much rather go wide. Right.
Yeah.
And that's where I think the mistake is in the thinking of how you play the deck properly. And I think that's one reason why it probably doesn't have a higher win rate because people see the strong card and they want to go, I want to play the strong card.
And I think that does help us go into a deeper level of it, which is why do you think Token Druid is so dominant right now?
Easy.
What do you think gives it that oomph that I think a lot of people weren't necessarily expecting? I know for a lot of our card reviews, like the 4 Save, the 8 mana twin spell, summon 5 treants was not getting much love. There was a lot of mechanics where people were like, you know what, I just don't expect this to perform the way it has.
Yeah, I think the reason is their cards just do what Druid cards tend to do, which is outvalue every other class's cards, right? Their turn 1 play. It's a 2 mana, 2/1, or it's a 1 mana, 2/1, draw 2 cards. Is essentially what it is. Yeah, they're 1/1 tokens, but still, they're 2 guys that do what your deck wants to do.
Exactly.
So
Your deck thrives off those 2/1
yes,
ones.
yeah. So I mean, they might as well be the most valuable cards in the game to you because they enable what you want it to do. So now
Mm-hmm.
you go into the next turn, and what are you doing in your next turn? You're summoning for 2 mana. You're summoning 2/4 worth of stats, right? Which
Yeah.
if they spent their resources already killing the last one, what are they going to have? So they go first. They play a 2/1. Then what are you going to do? Unless you're a hunter and you have a rush minion, you're probably just going to let that sit there. But say you're a hunter and you have a rush minion, you can kill that, right? If you're lucky, if you have it. So you send your links in, it dies. They still have initiative, right? So now what? They play their 2/1s. What do you do as a hunter? You've got 2 mana. You just killed one of your 2 rush guys. You can send the other one in. Okay, then you have your other links, and you're doing what? You're killing one of the 4 health that they have. Every one of their cards outvalues and outpaces, and it just snowballs, right?
Yeah.
And then not to mention that a lot of their most powerful effects have Twin Spell on them.
Yeah.
So they can just slam them down. Like, for example, the reason why the 8 mana play 5 dudes card is good isn't because you're playing 5 dudes for 8 mana. It's because you can do it twice in a row. They have to deal with it, or you Savage Roar them and they lose.
Yeah.
And once they've dealt with it, then you do it again. And chances are they can't remove it twice because the removal is so sparse in the game right now. And that's the backbreaker. There is
I think there you go.
And so it's the same reason. Okay, so anybody that's ever seen me play Hunter versus Odd Warrior, I farmed Odd Warriors in the old meta with Hunter. It took forever, but I had like a 70% win rate against them with Hunter because I knew how to beat them. You just run them out of resources essentially, you run them out of resources by forcing them, by playing 2 or 3 big minions that you make for free with Rexar, and you force them to exhaust all the resources, and then you get to fatigue, and then you get all of the resource value from playing your Zul'jin, and then you break their back, right? Well, it's the same thing that they're doing here, but they're doing it on turn 4, 5, 6, 7 into 8. So they're not doing it on turn 25, they're doing it on turn 8. And that's where you exhaust all of their ability to stop you from snowballing. And then on turn 8, they poop out 5 dudes, which they don't care what you do with them. They don't even have to like coin or they don't have to add anything extra to it. They want you to spend your resources. It's a decoy. If you can't, then they win because they've got Savage Roar by now because they've drawn 15 cards. And if they clear it, then you just do it again. And now they probably can't. And then you Savage Roar them, or you double Twin Spell. Give them +1/+1, which is the same thing as Savage Roaring, and you hit them in the face, and you just win the game. And I mean, how do you deal with in the meta right now? How do you deal with 5 4/4s?
Yeah, you have to be a very certain class running a certain list.
Shaman, if you have Hagatha's scheme in your opening hand, but then what? You do that, and then what? You totem. You play a 2/3 or a 3/2, and then they just do it again.
Yeah.
And then what? You play your other scheme? Okay. Then what? Then they just do it again because they've got 4 copies of that card.
It's the consistency is what you're saying. They
have more flood than there is removal in the game than most classes have.
Yeah. I think those are all perfect points. You touched on pretty much everything I was going to address. One, the fact that the stickiness in general, consistency is something I really didn't prioritize as much as I do now in that line of thought after hearing you explain it. And then you alluded to board removal and things like that. I think it's very interesting because I think that does play a pretty big role in the fact that a lot of lists don't have the same kind of board removal as we had previously seen. Think about a class like Warlock where you have something like Hellfire Defile. You're seeing a lot of Zoolock instead being played, especially because it's so early in this rotation. A lot of people want to have fun playing this Rush Zoo. And Zoo does have its ability to counter. If you run Magic Carpet, then your 1-drops can start to take out their tokens pretty well. But that's a situation that does seem a pretty swingy one way or the other. You think about lists like my Paladin. The only time that I've beat, or at least I can say every time that I've beat a Druid, I've had Consecrate on either 4 or Coin on 3. And that's to avoid the Soul of the Forest, which is essential. Every time I've won, it's because that play happens on turn 4, and everything after that is kind of just a formality. You just play your cards, and the fact that you've disrupted them early enough is enough to get you past that. But the reason I brought up Warlock is like, think about Defile and Hellfire. Those two cards aren't being run if Zoolock is primarily seeing play. We're now starting to see a little bit more Handlock, which, as we'll get into, a little bit more Control Lock. But even then, those classes, you think about Priest doesn't have Spirit Lash. That's a huge deal. It's an ability that would heal yourself back up after taking a little bit of a beating, plus remove the board is essential, along with Psychic Scream. A lot of things. I think Mage doesn't really have a turn 5 clear that they had with Dragon's Fury before, because not many mages are running Blast Wave. So those are all important, but also to keep listing off cards, I think the taunts not being as prevalent early game is having a bigger impact than I think people are realizing. Tar Creeper was one of the highest run cards in general during Year of the Mammoth. And that goes hand in hand with Tortellin Strong Shield, the 3-mana 1/4.
Stonehill Defender.
Stonehill Defender, there we go. These are all cards that we're seeing high levels of play, sometimes not even from just pure control classes. They were aggro classes running at least Tar Creeper because of how powerful it is.
Because
so getting rid of
their board.
Exactly. And that's a turn 3. It'll clear off anything that attacks into it.
Name a viable neutral taunt right now.
Yeah.
Name one. I'm not even talking about when you play turn 3. Name one.
The only one that I've seen at this point that I think we'll start to see more and more play, given especially Token Druid, is the 4-mana 2/6. There was a priest I went against that absolutely demolished me with some of my aggro decks.
I said neutral though.
Like, isn't that a neutral?
No,
2/6.
If you're talking about the one in the priest deck, the one that
gains +2 attack when it's by itself.
Oh no! I'm sorry. That you're talking about the like Solemn Defender or whatever.
Yeah,
Solemn Defender or whatever it's called. Yeah, I'm sorry. I thought you were talking about the priest one, the tentacle face one that kills a dude when it dies.
Oh yeah.
I'm sorry. I apologize. Yeah, that's the only one I can think of but that is, it's like a worse Tar Creeper. It's only really good in control decks.
Yeah.
And the thing
there's nothing that meets those levels.
Token Druid has the resources to outpace it because you're playing that on turn 4, which means you're answering their Call of the Wisps, whatever the Wisp one is that puts 4 or 5. How many ever Wisp you have in one Wisp on the board for every card that you have in your hand. That one. So you're answering that, which means that they're either going to Savage Roar or they're going to Soul the Force or trade into it, and they're going to have a board full of 2/2s. So they're going to upgrade all of their one. You just upgraded all of their 1/1s into 2/2s for them.
Yeah.
Whispering Woods, thank you, Ash.
Perfect.
So you just upgraded all of their 1/1s for them by playing that, which is why that Druid deck is so powerful.
Yeah. So I think that all those reasons are why it has such a high play rate, and it really is doing such a good job. And there's a reason why it's raising so many eyebrows. People saying, I read someone mention that Blizzard pretty much gifted this deck to Druid with this expansion.
Oh, 100%. 100%. And it just, and the other thing about it that like shocks me is that it's once again another example of Druid doing things better than the classes that should be doing them can do them. Right? They zoo better than the zoo classes. They zoo better than Hunter. They zoo better than Warlock. And those are classes that are supposed to be more aggressively focused by nature of their hero power, right? Like they're the ones that you would think would be the most aggressive classes. Yeah. And they can't hold a candle to it. And it's interesting too, how strong their board fill is. Again, using Control Shaman as an example. And I actually teched my Control Shaman just in one of the many iterations that I was experimenting with over the last 2 days. And I put in 2 Beaker Lightnings, 2 Lightning Storms, 2 Hagatha Schemes.
Jeez.
2 of those taunts that we're talking about, the 4-mana 2/4s. Lone Defenders or whatever they are.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. And Token Druid was still able to smoke me. Even with all of that removal.
It's forcing you to be so reactive in a game that you'll never be able to keep up with. That's the thing. It's almost like you have to play a deck where they have to be on the defense for you to really take advantage of the situation. because otherwise, the second that you give into their game plan, which is just I can do all day, is the situation where you give them the power.
The only and the only real way that I can think of to stop them are the cards that disrupt hands. Like, and the Warlock card doesn't. The Warlock disruption cards don't work because they're spells, right? They're not creatures. So whatever it is, demonic pact or whatever, you can't. What are you gonna?
The demonic project.
Sorry, demonic project. Yeah, you're gonna turn their Vargoth into a demon. So what? Then they just play everything else.
You'll turn their 2/1 for 1 mana into
or the other one, which is like the Saboteur, the 6 mana 5/6 play. Your opponent plays a card, targets chosen randomly. Well, that's too slow. You're dead by turn 6. So like the answer cards, the counter cards, just they don't exist right now, and there's so few removal and so few taunts.
You have to lean into a mid-range deck. I think you have to be able to do well enough to control the early game, and then shift to the point where you're putting on too much pressure for them to get their game plan.
Yep. And the only time I've been able to do that is with mid-range Hunter, where I Yahtzee, where I have coin on turn 4, and I unleash the hounds into Savannah Highmane, and I can hit him in the face, because then they can't do anything. You have to have a big minion on board that you can just punch him in the face with 3 or 4 times.
And I think that's where. Oh, please, yes.
As I said, but they still have a play around that too, because the same card that summons the Raptors can put a taunt on the board. So they have answers to even that scenario, because that's what happened. I did that, and then I hit him in the face, and then the next turn, they put up a taunt, and okay, now what?
Oh yeah, exactly. You're like, now I'm stuck here. And I think that's the tough thing. I think the fact that this is the Token Druid especially is getting such a reaction from people is the fact that games can feel that way. I think it elicits the emotion that felt at their worst times during Year of the Mammoth, which was powerless. You know, you pretty much are hoping that you high roll. A lot of the games that I've won against Druid is purely because I've high rolled. I had
or they low rolled.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think nobody, even when you win those games, it's not as satisfying as it should feel, because you don't feel like you don't feel like you really had the skill there. You don't feel like you outplayed your opponent, or that your opponent outplayed you. You feel like it was just, a very binary decision once certain things came into so early on, in fact. So I think that's why it's especially more stressful for people. And I think any energy that people are putting into Bomb Warrior stress, focus that over to Token Druid stress.
I agree. Token Druid is Token Druid is the deck now. Whether or not it's a tier 1, a tier 2, a tier 3, or a tier 4, it doesn't matter. It's so prevalent. It's so played at all levels, and it's so like emotionally like taxing on people. Like, it's funny because everybody was excited to come back to the game for like a week. Everybody's really excited, and there was so much hype, and everybody was talking. And now you hear people talking, and they're talking the same way they were a month ago. They're burned out already because one deck is just so oppressive. And
thankfully, I'm not hearing that too much.
And
I can realize why.
And I think the most frustrating thing about it is it's so easy to pull off things that make it work. Like the time you fail at it is when you just dead draw, right? When you just don't draw what you need, and you can't get going till turn 3 or 4, and by then you're too far behind. But if you've got a minion on board by turn 2 as Token Druid, you're probably way ahead. And if you've got 2 minions on board by turn 3, you've probably won the game, because the other guy can't catch up at this point, more likely than not. And if that's not the case, then you low rolled.
Exactly. The only times it feels nice is like I just had a match where the entire time I knew they were token because they had played 1 or 2 cards that tipped it. So it was very aware, but it was turn 6, turn 7, and nothing had really happened. And finally gets like turn 8. I'm about to win the game. They do their last turn, and it's like they had both Savage Roars in hand. They had their Power of the Wild. They had their buff up spell. Or they I know they had at least 1 Savage Roar, but I've got to imagine they had. So like a Savage Roar, Power of the Wild, and then the 3 mana +1/+1. Like they used. Oh wait, did they? Oh yeah, because they Power of Wild a minion on the board. So it's just like it can low roll, but the fact that there's so many supplement cards there that allow them to get the board. They can flood it with wisps. They can flood it with the acorn bear. Just so much. It's just
Mm-hmm.
That's what makes it tough.
Yep, I agree. So overall, do you think the deck needs an adjustment? And if so, what?
Again, this is where my whole I'd like to think I'm a creative person, but for some reason when it comes to Hearthstone, I just fall behind. Because it's tough. I think a lot of people look at the idea of designing cards and balancing cards as something that's very straightforward. But it's tough because you have to look at, one, what set are you affecting when you are going to buff or nerf a card? Is it going to be a classic set? Is this going to have long-standing ramifications? If you're going back to Year of the Mammoth and you were going to nerf a card or buff a card, like we didn't think Dr. Boom was a big deal back in Year of the Mammoth. A lot of people viewed it as, if someone had played that early in an Odd Warrior matchup, you'd think, oh, they just lost it. Like they played this way too early. This is a bad card that they shouldn't play so early. So like you and you realize, okay, well, it doesn't matter. Maybe we buff Dr. Boom now because it's not seeing play. All of a sudden this rotation happens and now it's so powerful.
Right.
And it could be only that much more powerful. So I honestly don't know. Whenever it comes to these sort of things, mana cost is usually the first thing that comes to mind. Maybe they could nerf Wisp to 5 mana. Maybe they could, I don't know. Even the spells, it seems so easy with Druid to tweak things 1 mana or 2 mana, but then the issue is you run into what we saw with Druid at the end of the last expansion where they nerfed, what was it? Oh boy. They barely see play, which is why it's so hard, but they nerfed Nourish and they nerfed the 2 mana that got to 3 mana, gain a mana crystal. And
Wild
so...
growth.
There you go, Wild Growth. And Druid took a big hit for a while. A lot of people did not see Druid for a long time. And so that's where it gets tough. You think about these, hey, for the sake of the meta, I'm going to start to do this, and you may just dismantle a class if you take it too far. So
yeah, but I think many would argue that Druid's had its time in the sun.
Yeah, I think it's tough. I think it's tough if you're...
How long was Shaman in the shadows? How long was Priest in the shadows? How long was Mage had one deck, right?
That's true.
But Druid has had how many good decks for so long? And this is coming from somebody that I loved Druid back in the day.
Druid was the first class I mained.
I get tired of seeing the same stuff over and over and over. It's not fun. It's not fun. It's not something that I want to play against. Like knowing when you queue up that you've got a 25% chance of playing now a Control Warrior, 25% chance against of playing, actually more like a 40% chance of playing a Token Druid, and then like a 30% chance of actually having fun. Right? Like I don't want to spend an hour to know that 40 minutes of it is going to be tedious and 20 minutes of it is going to be like, hey, they're playing a cool deck. This is fun. This is a new experience. I have no idea. Like the first time I lost to a Mechathune Warrior because I didn't see it coming. I was like, okay, that was pretty dope. Yeah. But now I'm seeing him 2 out of 3 games, and it's just like, okay, that's enough. That's enough.
What change would you think about making when it comes to Druid if you want to do your best just to hit this specific archetype?
I think the most obvious thing is the same thing that they did to was it the Undertaker? The Gravedigger, whatever it was.
I know what card you're talking about.
The 1 mana 1/2 play a death rattle, gain +1/+1. Just change the 1 card that adds +1/+1 with Twin Spell. Just have it add +1 attack. Have it add +1 attack. Then it still dies to things like to Unleash the Hounds. Then it dies to things like Explosive Trap. Then it dies to things like Beakered Lightning. Then it dies to things like what other people can play for 1 mana. Forked Lightning. Then it's more likely to die to Lightning Storm. It's more likely to die to Holy Nova, right? It's that 1 extra health that makes them so powerful. 1 extra health on turn, what was it, the 3 mana cost? 3 mana card. 1 extra health on turn 3 on 3 minions is huge. You just played an extra minion, like essentially on all 3 of your dudes, right?
So you see the power from that card coming, the fact that it's so early on that you can get that buff?
Because it allows you to keep your board alive, right? So that you can then Soul of the Forest on turn 4. right?
Okay.
So you get 3 or 4 minions on board by turn 3. You play that on turn 3. Then on turn 4, you play your Soul of the Forest. So now you've got, even if they traded into it, you've got reasonably three 2 minions, right? Now they all have Death Rattle, Summon a 2/2. Then they trade into them, and then you just do it again.
Yeah.
Or you Savage Roar, or you buff them. It enables too many things by having that extra health. That health is such. You talked about the big butt on Vargoth being, kind of a subtle advantage of that card. Well, the ability to put a big butt on all of your minions is the strength, one of the strengths of that deck in general, right?
Yeah.
And then the other thing is the twin spell probably is undercosted. It's probably undercosted, and I hate to say that, but it should probably be 9 or 10 mana, and I think it would still see play in that deck, and the deck would still be viable.
Yeah, it's interesting to look at
them to use more of their resources before they can do that, right? Because how many times do they play that on turn 8, on turn 8, and still have 3 or 4 cards in their hand, right?
Yeah.
Now they have to use those other resources, and instead of it just being something that they can then play and then use those other resources to buff, now they have to use those other resources to be able to play it, right? So they can't, they shouldn't get their cake and to eat it too, because nobody else has that kind of sustain. Nobody else has that kind of value.
Yeah.
Name another class.
And I think that's a good point. Yeah. You can't, you just don't have that. Maybe I don't know, old mid-range hunter.
The current
mid-range hunter now. Yeah, exactly. That's the fact that I'm comparing the most powerful deck arguably towards the end of last season.
Mm-hmm.
And realizing it doesn't touch that, but that's just, that goes to tell you the power level.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is interesting, because my whole thought was the fact that you mentioned, the +1/+1 on turn 3, and how that's so powerful, because they already run Power of the Wild, which is 2 mana, obviously, +1/+1. The more I think about that point, the more it's, hey, there's just another mechanic that they have that gives them +1/+1. It's the fact that you have that consistency. I didn't draw my Power of the Wild, but I did draw my Blessing of the Ancients, so I'm going to play that.
Bingo.
I think that's a good way to look at it, because initially I was just like, oh, well, you have a card that's less mana and does the exact same effect, but I think that's a fair point. It's a strong buff to have 4 copies of.
Right.
Actually, 6. What would that be? 6 copies? Because you have twin spell.
Yeah. Well, you have 4 copies of it from those twin. You have 4 copies because you have the card twice, and then the card twice, and then you've got 2 more copies from Power of the Wild, which does the same thing for 2 mana, but it doesn't have twin spell. But now you throw in the other value generating card, the legendary, that lets you have both copies. It gives you another copy plus another one of your choose spells. So now you've got even more. Like I said,
we didn't even talk about Keeper yet. Yeah,
we've been talking about this deck for 30 minutes, and we barely even scratched the surface of how of all of the ways that. And again, it's not that the deck in and of itself is too powerful. It's more powerful than anything else that can compete against it, right? It doesn't matter if all you have is a muzzle loader musket. If you're the only person in town with gun, you're God, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't matter how weak of the gun is, right? They just have the biggest stick, and they've got a bag full of sticks to back it up, and nobody else can hold up to that consistently. Yeah, you can have those games where you nut or they flop, and you can feel like you won, but more often than not, you just end up beating your head against the wall for 10 turns and feeling bad. How many times has this happened? Maybe not to you, because you haven't run into it maybe as much Token Druid as other people have, but you spend 45 minutes winning a game against Control Warrior to then turn around and lose a game in 5 minutes against Token Druid. It feels that's about the most terrible feeling in the game for me.
Yeah. Exactly. Which the only point I can even bring to that is as old as that's like, I'm sure, every card game, but the fact that obviously it doesn't feel good. This is a game where Blizzard has specifically emphasized that they want to prioritize positive interactions. Even if you lose, to have you lost in a more satisfying way than all of a sudden, they just slammed the board and I hit my hero power once and then I was dead.
Right.
Like that kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. And the thing that I think well, let me try this again. I think that the thing that is most frustrating for a lot of players at least for me personally. So I'm gonna project my feelings on a large percentage of the player base. Is that Blizzard does an extensive amount of testing before they release this stuff. They knew what this deck was going to do when it hit, and they chose to not adjust it. And they've done this before, where they'd said, "Yeah, we didn't really want to tweak it. We wanted to kind of see what happened, see if players could figure it out, and then they go back and fix it." And I think that's a real crummy way to manage. That's like saying, "Well, we're going to release this car with defective brakes, and then we're just going to wait till we get enough, lawsuits before we do a recall." It's a bad business model, and I think it leaves a bad taste in people's mouths. And I get it. I get where they're coming from a creative standpoint. You'd rather err on the side of caution, but you have to be realistic about your expectations. You've been down this road before in the past, where you've had to dial a card back shortly after release. They did it in Rastakhan, like within 2 weeks. They did it to multiple cards in Rastakhan. I imagine we're going to have something like that here, because one of the things that they said is they don't want the same like 3 or 4 decks, or the same like 5 or 6 cards. They don't want the same 3 or 4 decks dominating 60% of play, and they don't want the same like 2 or 3 cards being in like multiple decks. Like must includes in every deck, like Vargoth. So
and that even leads me to kind of my final thought about it. At least Druid is, because you've pretty much touched upon it. But first thing is, do you think Blizzard will address this deck one way or another? And second off, what do you think the timetable would look like for something like that?
I think that I think they'll give it another week. I'm sure they're watching it, because they have stats. They keep stats. Blizzard keeps meticulous. They mine data like crazy. I think they're going to give it another week before they do anything, because they're going to wait they want the meta to settle. But and they're going to say, well, we're happy with it being at a 52% win rate, but that 52% win rate is a product of the matchmaking system, not the deck. But that's another conversation.
I would almost argue this deck can supersede most of what Blizzard could throw at it, because what are the bad matchups for this deck?
I can't think of one. The worst matchup is probably Murloc Shaman.
Maybe
Murloc Shaman can
taking it to the board, and
because Murloc Shaman is about the only deck that has as much refill as it. But the problem is Murloc Shaman gets crushed by a lot of other decks. So it's you play Murloc, and how many times this happened, guys? You switch to something like Murloc Shaman to target Token Druid, and then you just run into Control Warrior. And you just keep running into Control Warrior, and you get smoked.
And speaking of Control Warrior, the Token Druid is how Papa Jason. That's the deck that Papa Jason ran to get to make Vegas, and that was during the explosion. When Control Warrior first started, really, or in the midst, I should say, at least, of Control Warrior really taking over the specials format, and seeing these 16-hour, 17-hour rounds or tournaments. And so that goes to show that it can hold its own against Druid. It has enough stickiness, it has enough pressure to hold its own there. So I would even argue if there was any sort of messing around and to do their best to counter the win rate, they would have a hard time doing it, just from the prevalence and the strength of this deck.
Yeah. So if they're gonna to just put a period on my answer, they're gonna give it another week, because it's Blizzard, maybe even 2. But I don't think we make it to May without them addressing this deck, because they're just gonna
really.
Here's what'll happen when they start to see their numbers drop, and all that remains is people playing a lot of Token Druid and Bomb Warrior. They'll do something to address it, because whenever you make changes, it's like when you have a losing football team, right? When your football team is losing, you fire the coach. Even if you just bring in a worse coach, just doing that changes the dynamic of the team. It changes the atmosphere. It changes. That'll bring players back. So people vote with their wallets. They vote with their time. And if they don't want to listen to people talking, then they're just going to lose players, and then they'll make changes. So I would imagine, I would be surprised if we made it to May without somehow Druid getting addressed. Maybe not in the way we think of, because they have the deep metrics that they can really see the numbers. But I think they're going to have to do something with it. Bomb Warrior, I don't expect to get touched, but Token Druid probably,
Yeah, I think if Warrior of any kind will get, probably going to be the I'm pretty sure that's the name. I hate that I'm not as familiar with all.
I didn't hear. You might cut out.
Oh, The Elysiana, the one that shuffles 5 different cards twice into your deck, or however that will be addressed in one way or another, even if it's not a straight nerf, a tournament ban or something. I don't know, but that will definitely get touched. As
But
far as
why would they nerf that card? That's the only answer people have to Bomb Warrior.
Oh, I mean, I can't tell if that's facetious or not.
No, I'm serious. Like how else? What other interaction do you have to remove bombs from your deck?
You've got
that and Rafam, yeah, but that's the only neutral answer that you have. Like,
oh, that's true.
So everybody has to play Warlock now because everybody was playing Bomb Druid. Nah, I don't think they touch. I don't think they touch her.
I think the tournament timers are enough reason.
Oh, they might ban her from tournament play.
But well, exactly, and that's exactly. Yeah, and I think that's just they'll dress in some way. But even talking about Druid, I would honestly be surprised if something was done.
Really?
This month.
Okay.
Yeah, I can see. Again, these are our kind of what's the word I'm looking for? I'll just describe it another way and say that they're kind of just like arbitrary. They're arbitrary numbers, but I can imagine the team saying, you know what, we're gonna have a month from launch. That's enough time for us to really have a settled down meta in the way that we think it should be, because there's still archetypes, like you said, Mechathune Warriors is a list that you're starting to see more and more. Handlock Warlock, I think, is going to keep seeing more and more play. I think there's a lot of lists out there. And I think there's also time where Blizzard's going to look and say, okay, we see that this deck is overperforming. Now we want to see the reaction that happens to that. Because that's the way metas develop, is the fact that a list gets popular, people start to counter that list. They do a good job. If they're able to do a good enough job, people want to counter those lists, and then you keep getting this sort of fluid, organic change to them.
100%.
So I can see Blizzard. I think if we see what we're still seeing, I think Blizzard will address Druid, but I don't think it's a sure thing, and I definitely don't think it's a sure thing.
Yeah, and you know what? Now that you said that, I was thinking about it a little more. A fair thing to consider that how fast they adjusted cards in Rastakhan was the fact that they had a year of the same meta, and the meta didn't change, and it just made the same archetypes or whatever. They had consistent data there. So yeah, taking into account that they had a year's worth of data, or 2 years worth of data almost, with some of the cards that were in there, that actually makes a lot of sense. So yeah, they might wait a little longer. You're right. I didn't think about that when I was making that statement. So I wouldn't be surprised if they waited longer. But if they did follow the other pattern, so we'll see.
Yeah, of course. And obviously, it turns into how the community. I think we'll address it a little bit later as well. But there was a recent, as in today, actually, I think either today or yesterday, where in Arena, Rogue had a 57% win rate, something great. Something overwhelming.
It was like 50. It was like 59 or 60. 63%, I think it was. Too Cool was talking about it on my channel. It was over 60% at one point, which is ridiculous.
Just yeah. And like those are numbers that are numbers you obviously have to do something. This Druid deck does not have a % win rate, so it's not going to see the prompt response that we saw in Arena. But the fact that what happened as a result of that is Blizzard nerfed the buckets that Rogue was getting and lowered the chance that you would get these cards that Rogue was using to dominate the meta.
Druid has a 60% win rate right now. The best
with token?
Yes.
No,
I'm looking at it right now as of today. If you look at Legend to 20, not just the higher ranks, you look at Legend to 20, it's a 60.13% win rate according to HS Replay.
Yeah, that's pretty. Is it how many games?
Oh, let me update it.
Or is that just saying Druid is it? Yeah. It's the only thing I had someone mention like Zulok having a % win rate or something, and it was a list that only 700 games on it.
Yeah, this one is a only about 500. But when you look at the deck that has 504,000 games, it's at a 59% win rate.
Okay, yeah, that's solid enough evidence.
1% behind it.
Yeah. Then those are real numbers.
Yeah. And
it goes to show the strength of the deck and the fact that it really doesn't have the type of bad matchups that we've seen yet. Who knows? Someone may be the meta breaker to find, solid ways to address this and everything that's happening on ladder, but they have to do a very good job.
Yeah. And one last point I want to make, and that's like something, like I said, I've spent a lot of time over the last week just trying to specifically counter that deck with all kinds of combinations of decks. And I have at best had 50% win rates against Druid at best. That's the ceiling, right? Is 50%. So I don't think I've had more than a 50% win rate with any deck versus Token Druid, even when I've specifically tried to counter it. So I think we've beaten this to a dead.
We really have.
Yeah. So I'll give you the last word if there's any last point that you want to make, but I think we should probably move on to some of because there's guys, believe it or not, even though we've talked between Token and Bomb Warrior, we've talked about 45 to 50% of the meta. There are other decks out there that we want to talk about.
Yeah, I was gonna say, can you imagine we were worried about filling time tonight?
Right.
No, I think we covered it very well. I really appreciate the perspective you brought because it made me think about things I wasn't thinking of. But yeah, I know just the minor summary is hey, we think Bomb Warrior is not, it's not all it's cracked up to be, and we think if anything, Druid is probably people recognize it should probably have a higher play rate, honestly, with the success that it's seeing.
Right, I agree. So what other decks are you seeing? What's the next deck that jumps out to you as a deck that you're like, this is a cool deck?
Because I've got a little. Oh, actually, okay. So 2 lists because I think they're so fun in the way that they do what they do. And they're both very similar. So Big Shaman and Big Paladin.
Nice.
Big Paladin running like duel, of course, and everything. Big Shaman, there's the 4/4 that it creates a copy of a minion in your deck. There's Eureka, all these different mechanics, all very, I don't know. Again, anyone who's familiar with me knows that I slammed Q block, so they know I love to cheat things out. And yeah, these are just the the cousins of cheating things out when it comes to Q block. Like they're just such cool decks.
Same thing with Mage too, Conjure Mage as well.
Oh yeah, except that feels much more oppressive.
Oh yeah, that deck can go off.
I can talk about Big Shaman and Dual Paladin / Big Paladin with a smile on my face, and I think people probably saw I almost had a frown when you mentioned.
You're right, yeah,
because it's so much more consistent and it's so much better.
Yeah, it's a viable deck. It's gonna see some play.
Yeah. It's so those are the 2 decks that I really like right now. At least I haven't really touched them, but I think they're very exciting, very fun decks. What about you?
So if we're talking about decks that I like, that I think are fun and interesting, I didn't know at the time because I didn't net deck any decks for like the first week of the meta. Like I was just like in the dark, in the blind. Chat might throw out an idea at me, but other than chat suggesting things, I either came up with stuff by thinking about it or running into things on the meta. Or on the ladder as I was encountering things, and so I started tinkering around with Rogue because I had high hopes for Rogue and Rogue shenanigans this season, and I had this deck and I called it IDFK, and I'll let you figure out what that stands for because I didn't know what the deck was turning into. I just started throwing synergies in this deck that I thought looked really cool, and it's a super greedy, like really like combo-y, like 15 different way to win deck. Had Chef Nomi in there. It had like Togwaggle in there. At one point I had Archivist in there. I mean, it was just like, it was all over the place. But I really like kind of how that works, where you can like Myra's out your entire deck, play your Chef Nomi, and then you can throw Togwaggle's Scheme on something to not take fatigue damage, and then on a later turn you can play or if you've got prep, you can like play our academic espionage, so you don't take fatigue damage, but now you have this big board full of 6/6s, right? And they have to deal with it. Or you can, if you have enough health, you don't have to put anything back in your deck, and then you can just shadow step it back to your hand and do it again, right? Or whatever. So I think that's a really fun deck. I think that is going to be Chef Nomi, which we were all making fun of at one point. I think Chef Nomi is going to turn out to be a kind of a win condition for a couple of decks. I know in Priest it works. I know in Rogue it works because I made it work. And I know it can work in Warrior because Warrior's not a class that can go to fatigue easily. And I even played it in Shaman at one point because I had this, when I was tinkering around with Shaman, I was going to fatigue quite often. So I threw Chef Nomi in there, and I even got a Chef Nomi win off in fatigue Shaman. So it's just it's a fun card, right? And it's not oppressive because like, if you know what they're doing, you just save a vanish or you save a one board clear and you're good to go. Unless it's rogue, then you need more than one. But generally speaking, it's not super oppressive, right? But it's just strong, and I like it. That's a deck that I really enjoyed. I've been tinkering around with I've said it multiple times. I've been the last 48 hours or 36 hours or so. I've been playing around with a lot of Control Shaman. It's a fun deck. With the rise of Control Mage and Control Warrior, it's not as good as it was 24 hours ago.
Probably second fiddle. Yeah.
It's not as good as it was 24 hours ago, but for about 24 hours there, I was having a lot of fun with it. I got all the way up to rank 4 or 5 stars with it. Almost hit rank 3 with it. And then it met its big brother, Control Warrior, and its big sister, Control Mage, and they just started putting it back in its place because they just do what it wants to do, but much better. And it's like no, like it's time for the adults to play now. Right. That said, I'm still bringing it as my featured deck today because I think it's a fun deck. I think there is room in the Shaman archetype. I'm gonna have to play around with it more to find something that's going to be viable, but it's definitely a Shaman is a class in general that I've always loved to play around with because it's a fun class to play around in because it usually has a very interesting space to work in. It's a little less straightforward. It allows for some kind of interesting, kind of like Rogue does, for some interesting kind of interactions. And so I've always had a soft spot for trying to make Shaman work, especially since Shaman's kind of been the redheaded stepchild of Hearthstone for a long time. Oh yeah. So what are you seeing other than decks that you find fun? What are you just seeing in general other than the decks we've talked about? Like, for example, I've seen quite a bit of Bomb Hunter.
Okay.
Not just Mech Hunter, but Bomb Hunter. I've seen quite a bit of that. That deck hasn't gone away yet. What about you?
Well, it's interesting you bring that up because I've got a list here of probably 10 separate decks. Once I hit Legend this month, the first deck I'm going to play is Mech Bomb Hunter. Our friend Audrey Kills, part of the whole Hearthbuzz community, as well as just an accomplished streamer on their own. They hit Legend this month fairly early with a Bomb Hunter deck that runs Flark and all these fun things. And I was playing it in casual the other night just because I couldn't. I was like, you know what? I just want to play this, but I don't trust my rank enough at this point. I'm starting to get into try hard rank 2 mode, so I want to keep that train going. But I wanted to still play it, and I had a lot of success with it. A lot of fun. So I haven't seen it really much. When I first started playing, and the expansion was released, I was seeing a bit of Mech Hunter. But even that's fallen off a little bit. So
I agree.
At this point, Tempo Rogue, I think all of us are seeing it's.
If Token Druid
was not where it is right now, we'd be talking about Tempo Rogue. It's purely being kept in check by the fact that there's such a much bigger elephant in the room. It's a little bit of I
was just gonna say, while we're on the subject of Tempo Rogue, I actually don't think Tempo Rogue is like oppressive. I think it is a good deck. I think it is a strong deck. It destroys Hunter. So the problem is that it has every version of Hunter ever run, it destroys. So it's kicked me out of my Hunter sandbox for a while, the jerk. But it's not like super oppressive. Like you look at its win rate on like I was HAS Replay, for example. I think it was around 52% or some 54%, something like that. It's actually no, it's below Control Warrior. It's at 53.9%. So it's good, but it's not like. I think everybody's pretty comfortable with a deck that's somewhere around, like a good deck is around 56%. So nobody's really hitting that mark right now. So 54%, the reasonable win rate for a deck at top tier play. So I don't think it's like super oppressive. I just think it's really strong, and it's good at beating the decks that are popular right now. Like it can just beat Token Druid because it can just go face faster than they can go face.
Yeah.
But I think that it will calm down a little bit once some of these, like, once people start remembering that taunt is a thing.
It really, I don't think it can be overstated enough how much less taunt we're seeing.
Yes.
And I think people were aware how strong Tar Creeper and Stonehill Defender were, but just like, it's just, if you weren't aware before, you have to be by now. It's interesting that you know, we'll go into a brief tangent on tempo because I have actually had some thoughts. But even when I was streaming the other night, I was part of a group of people who thought that Leroy should have been Hall of Famed as much, or at least expected Leroy to be Hall of Famed. And I think with Rogue kind of continually doing Rogue things, there was an open discussion where a few people were kind of in agreement that Leroy is a little out of hand, but also that Prep is a little out of hand. I think the fact that Rogue does have such a strong class card in Prep, and then the fact that Leroy is going to always continue to do Leroy things, which is potentially get you that, you know, that final burst that Rogue is known for, doing anywhere from the 6 on board to fitting in, I don't know. You see Shadow Steps, you see Cold Bloods, you see all kinds of things where they put in 20 damage on a turn where they drop Leroy. Especially with Waggle Pick now coming into the mix. So I think it's interesting because I think while Tempo Rogue, I agree for the most part, it's very strong, but it doesn't feel like it's cheating or anything necessarily. It doesn't feel broken. I think it is highlighting certain cards that are pretty powerful and I think are going to keep getting attention once, like say Token Druid does get addressed in a way that lowers its win rate. I think you'll hear more people talk about Rogue.
Well, like one of the reasons why I was really wanting to play Shaman was because there was so much Tempo Rogue, and Shaman does pretty well against. At least I was doing well against it with Shaman. But now everything is Druid and Warrior. It's either Token Druid or Control Warrior is what I'm seeing. So it's like, So I need to get to like rank 2 where all the Tempo Rogues are.
Well, in here, because I know even chat's mentioning how Prep is a you know, it's the class identity of Rogue. It's a very it's been around for a long time. The reason Prep was especially getting brought up, and this does transition to another card that could be addressed, was the fact that Raiding Party plays so well into Prep. Raiding Party Prep is probably the most commonly, but nope. It's a power move, okay? It's like Prep Coin. Or Coin Prep if you really want to be nasty. Exactly. So yeah, Prep Raiding Party may be the most common combination in Standard of Prep and another card. I actually can't think of something else off the top that fits so cleanly. So the fact that you're tutoring out, you know, of your weapon and then 2 cards that potentially can you know, work cohesively with that weapon, you get two free Dread Corsairs. Again, I think these are all mechanics that start to put Rogue in the sense where it's not as fun playing against, and it does feel a little bit like cheating or broken, but not, I wouldn't use the word exactly broken, but it starts to give people that impression.
Right. It's right on the cusp of yeah. I agree.
So yeah, I have a feeling that if Rogue even just stays consistently where it's at right now, unless these other contenders start to rise above it, people will start talking about ways that Rogue can get addressed within the next, I don't know, month and a half, 2 months.
Yeah, but you can't address Rogue right now because it's like it's the only hope there is at keeping Token Druid in check. Honestly, Control Warrior,
and it gives Warrior a run for its money, which is it's always bad when you're like, it turns into this whole rock paper scissors. Like, the reason we got to keep this class strong is so we can deal with this strong class.
Right.
But yeah, those are sort of my thoughts on Rogue.
Sure.
If you have anything addition, feel free to share. If not, I've got a couple more lists to share on my end. But
I was just say Rogue. I think the Rogue space is getting overlooked right now. I think Rogue has a lot of room to grow and expand beyond just Tempo Rogue. But I think because, you know, it's early in the meta, Token is a thing, Bomb Warrior and Control Warrior are starting to get explored and exploited, and Tempo is just so consistent. I think that it's kind of drawing attention away from the potential of Rogue. So I think people are going to come back to that. Is there any classes you're not seeing, like, at all?
Let me check my play percentages here. Paladin, for what, as much as I am slamming Paladin right now, Paladin I have not ran into very often. I get the occasional mirror with Secret Paladin, but outside of that, I'm not really seeing much other Paladin archetypes, to be honest. And then it looks like Priest. I have both those classes at a 6% in my past 40 games.
Yep.
Which is, again, there's obviously bigger impressions, but that does sound about right, honestly. Everything else I think is seeing, I'm running into.
I've been experimenting with decks basically since launch. And you know, when something gets successful, I get up to like rank 4, start pushing rank 3, and then, you know, I start running into counters and I fall back down. The only time I see Priest, period, is when I am at rank 5 0 stars, rank 5 1 star, or rank 5 2 star. As soon as
that's brutal.
As soon as I start getting to rank 5 3 star, 4 star, or 4 star, 5 star, or getting in rank, priest disappears. it just doesn't exist. And like the priest silence thing that looked like it was gonna be really powerful, like it feels easy to play around. Even when I'm playing a deck that isn't tech to beat it, it feels easy to play around. I've crushed it with Control Shaman. I've crushed it with Hunter. I've crushed it with Tempo Rogue when I played Tempo Rogue. I've crushed it with Mech Secret Paladin when I was dabbling with that deck. I think the only time I've lost to Priest is when they've gotten the Vargoth out and I don't have an answer to it, and then they double resurrect. That's about the only time I've lost to a Priest. Or they get the Yahtzee of the inner fire, or the, you know what I'm saying, they get that Yahtzee off. But I'm probably 80% against Priest right now. So it's getting smoked.
Yeah, I think one thing, I actually haven't run into this deck on ladder. I know there's been a little discussion in chat about it. And we did I know what you're saying. Mentioned worlds and everything, but yeah, Nomi Priest, Chef Nomi Priest, which I think I can see the potential there. Yeah, I think everyone can. Like, the pieces are there. We've talked, an infinite amount about the fact that Priest has very low cost spells. The amount of 0 cost spells Priests have right now is ridiculous.
Yes.
The amount of draw mechanics that Priests can take advantage of are ridiculous, and so they are almost primed to work in, some miracle based deck. And the fact that Nomi is so natural, Nomi's such a natural fit, especially with cards like Seance. It's gonna, I want to hop on ladder now because I haven't seen the deck yet, but I have a feeling, even Jeremy's mentioning they've been seeing it all day. The fact that Worlds lists are out and there's 2 players, I believe, who are bringing Chef Nomi Priest, is going to also increase the amount of attention it receives, and which, and also, inadvertently or advertently increase the play rates. I'm looking forward to facing it and seeing how the matchups go and all of that. I don't know if that'll mean it has staying power, but maybe that'll give Priest something.
Yeah, and if that's it, then they're just replacing, like why does Priest have to be the gimmick class?
Well,
like that's like
this one trick, like
they're either
based around
they're either hitting you in the face with a big blood minion that you just didn't have one removal for, or they're doing some like OTK gimmick, and there's just like no in between. I remember talking on like episode 2 or 3 of the Orbit when X was super excited about this idea of like a super aggressive like Shadow Priest, flip the class on its head for just for a couple months, and they did more of the same, and it just feels like a weaker version of what Priest was 6 months ago, but basically the same thing.
Yeah. And less equipped to handle. Getting rid of Shadow Visions, getting rid of, as I mentioned, Spirit Lash. I think people are really probably going to, especially as we're seeing these token decks like Token Druid and these, they swarm the board sort of powerful decks.
Spirit Lash wouldn't have stopped these. If Beaker Lightning, a free 1 damage, can't stop it, then a 2 mana 1 damage can't stop it.
I'd argue just from the fact that Priest does have spell damage mechanics, and everything. I think
so does
there
Shaman,
could have been a role. Well, exactly, that's true. But you're getting lifesteal on top of that. Either way, they don't. Well, that is true too. Either way, they don't have any of that. They don't have their Psychic Scream, nothing.
Yeah. Psychic Scream was really the answer, because drawing a 1 mana 1/1 when you want to draw your 8 mana spell, that's what would slow Token Druid down.
Yeah, Blizzard knows they've done something wrong when I'm rooting for Priest to get Psychic Scream off right now. Yeah, that's when we're in the bad universe.
We're in the upside down right now.
Yeah.
Anything else in the meta you think we need to touch on?
I'm just gonna list through these, but I don't think we have to deep dive into any of these, because a lot of them are self-explanatory. At least don't need. Summon Mage is probably the most noteworthy one. I think that we could actually have a bigger discussion about. Exactly. Yeah. It's Khadgar and the power of creation. The 3 mana. It's gross at 3 mana. It has to be higher cost than that to destroy your minion and bring it back. There's Zulok, Handlock. Mid-range Hunter is still seeing a place. I think almost every single player brought mid-range Hunter and not a mech Hunter to Worlds.
Yep.
There might be one or two outliers, but otherwise everyone has faith in the mid-range Hunter.
Mid-range Hunter is still good. I can tell you it's still good. It struggles against Rogue, and it's a coin flip against Hunter. Against Druid. It's a coin flip against Druid. And it's still good enough to beat slow warrior decks. It can't beat OTK warrior, or it can't beat Mechathon warrior. So that's the problem, because unless you're playing a non-beast variant, because then you need things that can pull stuff out of the deck. But I digress. But mid-range Hunter is still good. It's just the things that are really strong right now are very prevalent, so it's pushing it down a little bit.
Well, exactly. And I think the fact, like, again, Rexar, everyone is aware of how powerful Deathstalker Rexar is.
No.
But I think it's interesting, because I had the impression that Hunter would honestly be fine. Hunter would be able to keep up with the sustained pressure enough to not necessarily miss Rexar that much after rotation when everyone else loses so many tools. But I think people are really feeling it. People are really feeling that running out of gas sort of sense that Druid can have in these bigger matchups that you're talking about here. Like, you are going against a Druid that has so many ways to consistently flood the board. You're going against a Warrior where you didn't necessarily have the ideal start. You're just losing those comeback mechanics. So it's interesting to see mid-range take prevalence in the world players' minds versus like a mech variant of some kind.
I honestly think it's more consistent. I honestly do.
Yeah.
I still have on mid-range Hunter. The lowest my range has gotten on mid-range Hunter is 58%.
Yeah,
when it's humming on 60 plus.
Yeah.
And that's even with the bad matchups that exist. I get bored playing it, so I play other stuff.
That's fair. Anyway. Well, yeah, and speaking of which, what are you seeing? Anything else that we haven't really covered?
We've touched on most of them. The Silence Priest is the one, like I said, I talked about that one. Heal Druid I've seen a little bit of, which I think is just... It's a real cool concept, but it's just... Unless the only one I've seen that's really good is the one that uses duplicate mechanics to get like 5 of the Iron Bark guys out, whatever they are, the 8 mana 4/8s that.
Oh yeah.
There are ways to duplicate that. Yeah, Lucent Bark. Thank you. There are ways to duplicate that out, and that's pretty gross, because then you kill them all, and then for healing yourself for 5, which is a 1 mana spell, by the way, they get 5 of them back. It's kind of a gimmick, but when it works, man, it works. It's tough. But that's really about it. And then I have seen the occasional Thief Rogue, but it's just, it doesn't hold a candle. It doesn't hold a candle to tempo, so it's not really getting played much. And of course, we mentioned Secret Mech Paladin. I see that one too.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm seeing. But I've also been floating at rank 5, where everybody is just playing whatever they decide they want to try out.
Were there any lists that you were expecting to see that you haven't?
Yes. I was expecting Wall Priest to be a lot more prevalent. And the closest they have is Resurrect Priest. Wall Priest, I think, still has the tools to exist. It's just too slow. It's just too slow. But I'm actually surprised that people haven't tried to make it work, just because there are still some like big butted minions in the game, and they do have, like, take the minions that you put in Silence Priest and just put them in your Wall Priest, and then just flip their butts around and hit people in the face with it. Those cards still exist. Topsy Turvy still exists. Yeah. I'm surprised that we're not seeing. That's probably the biggest one. And then there was another one that we theory crafted, and I should have written it down because I meant to put it in my show notes, but I forgot to write it down when I was thinking about this before the show. It'll come to me. What about you?
Okay. I honestly haven't seen it. Apparently, it has a 30% win rate right now. But Pogo Rogue. I was expecting.
That's the one. Yes.
Yeah. Was it Pogo? Because I thought you were going to say Control Rogue, and I was like, you know what? I want to say mine first because I'm.
No. Pogo. Control Rogue. Control Rogue. I want to see Control Rogue, but I wasn't expecting to see it. I was expecting these because all these pieces, like I remember doing the card review here a couple weeks ago, where it's like, oh my god, there's all these ways to put pogos in your deck. I experimented with pogo though, and it's actually too slow. It's just too slow.
Which is fair. I mean, that's the issue the deck originally had. I'm trying to think of ways that you really. It seems like the ways that a pogo rogue would succeed are almost inherently too slow. You've got too many combo pieces to really, explode onto the scene enough to deal with all these other threats that you're seeing. The tempo rogue that you're normally seeing, the token rogue or the token druid, all these hunter in any form. It makes sense, but I was expecting to see more still.
Right. The thing that I see like pogo rogue working would be like you togwaggle like 10 pogos into your deck, right? With togwaggle scheme, and then you like Myra's them all out, and then you play them. But you can just do that with Chef Nomi for a lot less work. So it takes 3 cards. Prep, having Nomi prep and Myra's in your hand, and then you just prep the Myra's and then play the Nomi and you win the game. Theoretically on turn 9? Anyway.
Yeah.
But yeah, control rogue I would like to see, but I'm not surprised we don't see it. Like I just knew that looking at the cards that were coming out, that tempo, and I thought Togwaggle and things like that were going to be prevalent. And tempo rogue's always going to be a thing because that's kind of their archetype. But just like some sort of mid-range aggro hunter is always going to be a thing. Same thing with tempo rogue. That's always going to be a thing because of the way that their cards work. At least it should be if they're sticking to class identity.
Exactly. It's talk about literally the identity.
Just like Control Warrior is always going to be a thing, guys. Sorry, and that's literally what it does.
Yeah. If you didn't accept that fact, almost what are we 5 years into Hearthstone? We're coming up on 5 years.
No, we're over 5 years.
Yeah. Then.
No, we're just over 5 years.
It's time to swallow that pill.
5.5 since beta. 5 years since
like release. Actual. Yeah. So yeah, there you go.
Okay.
But yeah, a lot to cover. I'm excited for the way these sort of conversations go in the next. I would say within the next 2 weeks, so 2 episodes from now, we will have, our mate. Like this won't be a discussion that has so much variety in it. I think we will really know and hammer down right away. This is what I'm seeing. This is what's prevalent.
Yep. We'll know at the top. Yeah, we'll know what the tier, like the top 3 decks are. We'll know what like the tier, because it'll be probably like it always is. Like there'll be 2 to 5 decks that are floating in and out of the tier 1, and there'll be like 5 decks that are in tier 2, and then there's decks that nobody plays because they're not the top 7 or 8 decks. Yeah, and we'll know what those are. I think you're absolutely right. It's usually about 3 to 4 weeks is when the meta hashes out, and I think you nailed the time frame on that 100%. In the meantime, though, what let's talk about what we've been playing around with. One is a viable ladder climbing deck brought by Mr. Rude Clouds, and one is a deck that I really wanted to work, and it's a lot of fun to play. God, it's so greedy. If you love greedy, ridiculous decks, this is a fun deck. But if you don't want to lose to a bunch of control warriors, don't play it. So let's switch over to the board, and then we'll pop them up there. And then,
don't get seasick.
Yeah. And then why don't you go first? For some reason, when I populated your list into the deck code here, it didn't put the name of your deck in. But
exciting!
Yeah, the one here that's closest to us on the left, if you're facing it, is Rude Cloud's deck. Rude, why don't you talk about it?
I would love to. Anyone who popped by the stream yesterday saw me just really slamming this deck, and I think, I don't know, it's given me every reason to keep slamming it. This is a secret mech paladin. I'm sure you've seen a little bit of variation, but it's really not as common on the ladder as I was kind of expecting. The reason I'm such a fan of this deck is because it seems to handle itself really well against most matchups. It struggles against rogue. And it does struggle against token. I mentioned earlier on the ways that I normally win against token druid is I can get a consecrate out on either coin 3 or on 4 before they can do their soul of the forest. And so that's always a nice mechanic. But in general, this deck has the advantage of getting to the board quickly. You usually want to have this game plan. You play your secret on 1. On 2, you're either playing your Sunreaver Spy, which is a 2 mana 2/3 minion But if you have a secret on board, it turns into a 3/4 minion, which a 3/4 for 2 mana is gross. That's just gross with no downside. Usually for that kind of stat line, there'll be you give your opponent a coin or you summon a 1-drop or something. And that's just pure stat line.
It's easier to get that cheated 3/4 out on 2 than it is the rogue one.
Oh, yes.
Because you can get this one out on curve. I do not know of a way with short of having coin. No, even that doesn't work. That you can get the rogue one out on 2.
You have to run that one mana card that discovers whatever, a spell from another class or a what's it called? It gives you it's a discover. It's 1 mana. It's the only way that because I had the exact same. It's like, wait, the only thing that's comparable is this. Let's just say Paladin is so much more reliable. Look how many secrets this deck runs. I actually haven't fully counted. But yeah, it looks 6 secrets, and it has potential to, I think, even run more. Honestly, I'm trying to. This is the net decked version of this deck, but I'm ready to start playing around with it. It just works so consistently. You get your secret out, you get the Sunreaver Spy, or your Mysterious Blade, which is a 2 mana 2/2 weapon that can turn into a 2 mana 3/2 weapon if you have a secret online.
Right.
And the deck just it just does so well. You have the tools to address things early on. You have the sticking power with your secrets of either summoning back a minion, getting the auto defense matrix off. Bellringer Sentry, some much more secrets. The mechs are really what make it shine. This deck can run Mechano Egg, which you will be getting for free if you log in any time between now and the 21st.
Golden.
Exactly, golden even. But it doesn't. It feels like that sort of weighs down the deck. There's even times where I don't like playing the mechanical whelp, but the fact that the whelp can at least attack on the turn that it's played, and the fact that I don't think you can run this and 2 copies of the egg, or else you're bogging down your deck too much with too many heavy minions. The whelp just kind of wins for that. But even then, like, they just do such a good job of being able to keep you in the game early, and then really shine is that mid game where you can just I've slammed down warriors because I just put up enough pressure. Rangor's Endless Army is gross. It feels so good getting off, these minions that I put one of my copies of Kings on. I put a War Gear on another one. There's Ziliax online that's dealing a bunch of damage
too.
It keeps the Kings. It keeps any enchantment.
Oh, I see. I thought I read that as it only keeps the magnetic enchantments.
Yeah, no, it's gross. Wow. It's gross. And that's
bonkers.
The reason I was debating about running Kings initially when I started this deck, and that's the reason I've kept Kings, is because those decks like Warrior, that can be the difference. That +4/+4, you're looking to just make tall minions that are hitting them in the face hard.
Right.
So yeah, it's just a very strong, fun deck. I'm currently rank 2 1-star with it.
Nice. What's your win rate?
With 63% win rate with it.
That's
which
bonkers.
Feels good at rank 2.
Yeah, heck yeah.
So yeah, I would thoroughly recommend. I'll post the deck code if anyone was interested in chat. But I would thoroughly recommend this if you're interested, especially say you're rank 20 or 25 and you don't have all of these cards. This deck can still get by with missing a couple legendaries. I realize it's a super expensive deck that I think runs 5.
Heck yeah.
So feel free to pop by my channel if you want anything while I'm streaming, ask any questions about the deck, and I can probably help you allocate properly for what your list may look like.
Yeah. Speaking of a heavy deck.
Yeah, jeez Louise, I'm just looking.
Yeah, if you thought that 6 legendaries, 5 legendaries he runs is a lot, don't look at mine. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and I had an 8th one in there at one point. I used to run Electra. So this is Control Shaman. This is the most consistent list, and I say that with some hesitation because put a small asterisk next to that. There's another version, because I experimented with a bunch of different versions over the last couple of days, and all homebrewed, and I experimented with some more mid-range variants in it. The mid-range one had a little more success in certain matchups, but it had less success in other matchups, so it's a trade-off. So it had almost the same win rate, but flipping matchups. This is the one that I found to be just like the most consistent in everything but Token Druid and Control Warrior. Control Warrior, unfortunately, this deck gets crushed by, but it's super fun to play. It's super fun. And actually, it can win Control Warrior because of one card, the Unseen Saboteur, but we'll get to that in a second. So this deck basically does what Control decks want to do. You basically it's a slow, methodical deal with their board, slowly building up your own board until you can just kind of push them in the face. I don't want to say hit them in the face because you kind of push them in the face. One thing this deck does lack is some burst. Like I experimented with a Bloodlust in here because it just needed some way to just like hit them hard and fast. That's probably the biggest weakness of the deck, other than the fact that it struggles against something like Control Warrior because it can't punch them in the face. But you get I experimented with the number of Earth Shocks that runs this. It runs 2 Earth Shocks. The reason why I run 2 Earth Shocks is there's so many things you want to silence in the deck in the meta right now. Elix, if you're playing Bond Warriors, are kind of a must silence. Vargoth is very common in the meta right now because Token Druid, must silence. Double Ooze, I experimented with 1 Ooze, double Ooze, because there's so much Temple Rogue, there's so much Warrior. So double Ooze, and it's just in matchups where you don't have the weapons, it's just a great 2-drop to play. It's an aggressively statted 2-drop that trades up. 1 Doomsaber, I experimented with 2. 2 felt bad because there's a lot of times you draw it late game and you're just like, well, this card sucks. But it's always nice to have 1 that you can dig hard for when you're playing Token Druid, give you a little bit of a chance to slow them down. The Omega Mind is kind of a clutch card. I experiment with a lot of ways to heal in this deck. Because it does go long. And yeah, you can discover some from Hagatha and some of the spell discover mechanics. You can get some healing effects, but I wanted 1 consistent heal effect. And because the fact that you run double Lightning Storm and the fact that you run double Hagathas, that's essentially a Reno, right? You play that on turn 10 or after with Hagathas, and it's a full heal, even with only a couple minions, because if your Hagatha has 10 attack on it, you need three minions to give you full heal, and the Omega Mind counts as 1, so you just need 2 other ones. So you pop a totem, you pop the Omega Mind, and if they have 1 minion on board, you full heal, right? And so it's just a good way to come back into the game. Double Hex for the same reason why you run double Earth Shock, but the hexes are more for the people that go tall, right? There's a lot of things right now cheating out big minions. Mountain Giants, the 7/8 taunts that mages get out when they duplicate their Mountain Giants. A plethora of other things that you can think of. Hex is always good. Hex will always be good. There's a reason why Hex got nerfed. It's a good card. Storm Chaser is probably a bit of an odd card. Storm Chaser does 2 things in this deck. Actually 3 things. It's a decently statted minions of 4 mana 3/4, which isn't great, but it is draw, and it more importantly draws you more often than not your Hagathas. So you're not drawing your Hagatha late game as a 5 mana deal 1 damage, which feels real bad. And also it enables the Sunreaver War Mages, which are kind of the next cool card in this deck. Yeah. So, but I'll get to that. But Barista, just tons of value. Barista, if you don't know, is a 5 mana 4/5 that duplicates any Battlecry minions, adds them to your hand. Super value card. You can there's so many Battlecries in this that you can hit and just get a ton of value off of. This deck wins basically by going to fatigue, because you don't have a way to like punch him in the face. I mean, you can tempo out, sometimes by getting 3 or 4 minions and just hit him in the face, but generally speaking, you're trading, controlling the board, and you're winning by out resourcing them. And that's a great card to do that with. The card that makes this deck really work is Hagatha's Scheme, because it can clear any board. If you have it in your hand long enough, it can clear any board. Super powerful. Especially with all of the cheat mechanics that exist right now. Sunreaver Warmage is a great tempo card. It's a 5 mana 4/4 that deals 4 damage if you're holding a spell in your hand that is 5 or more. This deck has 3 of them, and possibly more if you discover one. Ziliax is just a great heal mechanic. It's proactive. It rushes on the board. It allows you to heal up a little bit, usually for 6, usually killing 1 to 2 minions. It's just Ziliax is great in any deck. There's literally no deck I can think of that can fit Ziliax that shouldn't have Ziliax in it. If you can fit Ziliax, play Ziliax, period. It's one of the best cards in the game right now. Cragwaz,
one card our decks have in common.
Yeah, exactly. Cragwaz is another fun addition. I debated this card a lot. I put it in and took it out, put it in and took it out. The card, if you can get a hex off of it, then the card has paid for itself. Having a third hex in a deck is bonkers. And if you can get a hex off of it and then barista it back into your hand, lichen it back into your hand, that Kragwas, and then play the hex again and then get it back again from Kragwas, that's absolutely insane, right? So having that in there, and it combos with so many different things. I mean, you could coin into something. It's great with Haunting Visions because you play the Haunting Visions, then play the free thing, you get 2 things back with Kragwas. All kinds of great value combinations. This deck is all about value, outvaluing your opponent, and winning the long game. Super greedy, super fun, sometimes backfires, but when it works, man, this is a good feeling. Rain of Toads is just a great tempo card, slows them down, gives you some stall, and can actually be an effective way to actually just put a little pressure on them. I played it on curve before just to have 3 minions on board. One of my favorite cards in the deck is the Unseen Saboteur.
Yep.
If I added this before Mechathune Warrior was a thing, because it just messes with your opponent's hand. It's great when you use it on a rogue to mess up their prep. It's great when you use it against Druid to mess up their Savage Roar. It has a lot of uses, and because this deck runs Shutterwalk, you get 2, and because this deck runs Barista, you can get more than that out of this. So you can get at least 1, potentially 2, and even sometimes 3 of their spells messed up. But you get to fatigue with a warrior. You play this and you burn one of their Mechathune combo cards, probably win the game. Swamp Queen Hagatha, great card, good value. Is a bit of a tempo loss, but you don't care about that in this deck because you want to be greedy and get that value. Archivist, this deck is designed to go to fatigue. When you get there, this card keeps you alive because then you play that, and then you go into Shutterwalk and you get 20 cards added to your deck or more if you use Barista to pop anything back to your hand. You see where I'm going with the value on this deck.
Yeah.
Hagatha, we all know the power of Hagatha. The caution with Hagatha is don't play it if you've got more than 6 cards in your hand, because the way this deck works, you will burn cards a lot because it is a very slow deck. Walking Fountain is one of my favorite cards in this deck. I had one, I added a second one. It's great heal, it's great removal, it's proactive. In the mid and late game, it is an absolute baller card. You can take one out if you want to tech something else in, but I love having 2 because I'm super greedy. And then Shutterwalk is the backbone of this deck. When you get to that fatigue, you've played all of your cards, you've got 4 cards left, you just played Archivist, then you play your Shutterwalk, and it's awesome.
It's go time.
Yeah,
because I'm guessing, because you get the Archivist, and that just gives you the standard. You get to just do everything all over again.
Yeah. When you play Shutterwalk with Archivist, it picks 5 random cards. But you do that late. So you play the Archivist, right? Like when you get to fatigue on turn 22 or 25 or whenever fatigue happens, because there is card draw in this deck.
You monster.
Yeah. So you play that, then you go 10 more turns. Right?
Yeah.
Or how many ever. It's usually like 6 or 7 because there is card draw in this deck. But you go 6 or 8 more turns, and then when you're going to hit true fatigue and your resources are running out, then you play the Shutterwalk. Get just 10 random cards in your deck so you don't die of fatigue. And then you just, at that point, you're hoping that they're fatigued and they're dying. So, or if you're playing a bomb warrior, you play it on turn 8 and just get rid of the bombs and, move on with your life. Because chances are you've got high value cards in your hand already, so you don't need what's in your deck because there's so many high value cards in this deck. So, it's pretty bonkers. I love this card or this deck. It's super fun. Like I said, it does struggle against Control Warrior. It can beat it. It does struggle against Token Druid. So I've stopped. I actually was trying to tech this deck to beat Token Druid because I've seen so much of it. I stopped trying. I just look at it as Token Druid. Token Druid is a 40% win rate with this deck. Other than Token Druid, even with Control Warrior, being a tough matchup, it's still a 50-50 coin flip.
Oh wow!
Yeah. It was lower. I actually thought it was lower because we were talking pre-show, but I actually looked at my stats. It's a coin flip. I looked at various versions of it. It's anywhere from 47 to 54%. So depending on which version. So it's not terrible against that. Its only real struggle is it crushes Rogue. This deck, unless you just miss, this deck usually crushes Rogue, which is one of the reasons why I wanted to start playing it. So, yeah. So it's a fun deck. It's a fun deck. I encourage people to experiment. There's a lot of room for teching in this deck. It's a very greedy version of this. You can tech this deck down if you want to take this list as your core. You can tech it down. You can make it more mid-range. I experimented with more mid-range decks. Get rid of one Earth Shock, one Sludge Belcher, one Acidic Swamp Ooze, maybe dump one of the Walking Fountains and put some early game elementals in there, or a couple of what's the Unbound Elements card, the 2-mana one that buffs an element, Unbound Elemental card, whatever it's called.
Oh, yeah, that one.
You put that card in there, for example. You tech out those 4 or 5 cards, and it makes it a little more, not quite mid-range because it's super greedy, but it lowers the curve a little bit and gives it a little bit more of an early game. There's lots of ways you can meddle with this deck. This is just the one that I found to be the most consistent and having the most answers for the way that I play the deck. And I really like it. It's really fun, and it's something that you're not seeing a lot of in the meta.
Yeah. Well, I was just going to say that the mental fortitude alone that required to play like more than 5 games with the deck beyond me. Like,
I've played 28 games with this version, and I've probably played another 15 to 30 games with other versions that I was experimenting with. So I probably have about 50 to 60 games with Control Shaman in the last 48 hours.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, kudos. It's a super cool list. And again, just to reemphasize, this is not a net deck. This was purely Az's creation. I'm sure with some inspiration, like from here and there, maybe there was
sure,
guidance or something along the way. But like, yeah, this is as still as creative as you can get.
But the thing is I mean, there's I mean, you can say this with any deck. If you Google any Control Shaman deck, it's probably going to be pretty close to this, because these are cards that make sense in this deck. I took it to a greedy extreme, though, because that's what I tend to do. If you've ever seen me play Spell Hunter, I'm about as greedy as they get.
Would you be comfortable posting that code in the chat if you
100%. I will pull it out after the show, though, because I have to open my deck tracker for it, and But give me like 30 seconds after we end the show here in a few minutes, and I will post it in the chat. 100%, no problem.
You've got my code above. That's the secret paladin. Az will be taking care of you shortly.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, thank you for bringing that. I'm excited to see what we do next week, because one, I'm going to be hard stuck playing this one deck to hit legend. And then also I didn't realize I'm at 456 paladin wins, I think.
Nice.
Right? And so that's within striking distance of the golden portrait. And
nice.
Paladin is in World of Warcraft, at least Paladin is my favorant class. So that'll be a nice little moment.
Too.
I'm surprised. As the Holy Warrior.
Oh man. Interestingly enough, the only one I don't have golden is Mage, but now's a good time to play Mage, so I'm coming for you.
Yeah. But there you go. Thank you for bringing it. I'm excited to like see what we bring, and then you see what Exiles has been up to as well, because I know I've been seeing Exiles offline playing a little bit and been wanting to pick his brain, but it's sort of like, you see a pitcher, they've got a perfect game going, it's the 9th inning, you're like, you know what? I'll bother you after the game.
Right.
Yeah. So yeah.
So it's a fun deck. Play it at the rank floor, though, because it can be tricky to play. But it is a fun deck, and when it goes off, it feels like you can't lose. Oh my god, it's so over the top. It's so over the top.
Yeah, I couldn't imagine your opponents.
Yeah.
Okay.
But all right. Well, now that we've rolled around in our own love of our decks for a minute. I think it's time to start wrapping things up for the evening.
Yeah, I agree. I did want to do just a quick overview, because we did tease it with the Twitter poll, but it's going to be an abridged version because we've really milked it. So for anyone who wasn't here earlier when we teased this week's Twitter question, I'll post it here in chat. Feel free to vote if you'd like. The question is, or I should say the tweet reads, and then the question is followed by, this week it was announced that the arena rankings will now reflect players' 30 best consecutive arena runs throughout a season. The first season will be 2 months long instead of 1 month, which is what we're used to seeing. You see leaderboards the same way as standard every month. They show you the top 200. Arena did the exact same thing. Now they're going to change that so Arena does 2 months instead. So the question is, do you agree with this change or are you against it? First thing, just to read the current results, we're at 57% agree with the change, 43% disagree with the change, over 14 votes. So that means 8 people are for, 6 people are against.
Mm-hmm.
And just to break down my thoughts, I am shocked. I am shocked that this was not a landslide of against this change. I may have, the bias in there of following arena streamers who've openly not been for this change because of the fact that arena is very much a format that doesn't see the sort of attention that standard does. It's a much, it's a smaller community, smaller attention's usually put on it. And so the idea of at least having sort of a monthly leaderboard, that does keep people more engaged, and it does bring more attention routinely to the format, because every month people are curious about how someone ended up, and every month an arena player can say, hey, guess what, I'm top 200, I hit leaderboard. There's a lot of good friends of the stream who hit top 50 leaderboard routinely, and that's a good selling point for a streamer. So I was very, very surprised. I think the reason that this probably happened is because they're trying to make Hearthstone again more accessible to players who can't put in as much time. The same thing that we've seen with these specialist tournaments where, hey, maybe someone can't make a trip out to, every tour stop that we have, but they can maybe spend time online, maybe not 16, 17 hours in a row, but they can at least be at their computer, and they don't have to buy a plane ticket to participate in the chance to be, part of this tournament. This is the same thing. Not everybody can play 30 consecutive arena runs over the course of a month. People had trouble hitting that, let alone being happy about those 30 runs that happen.
Right.
So this is helpful for the accessibility of the game, which is the direction that they are taking the competitive side of Hearthstone. With that even said, though, it's tough. It's tough to be on board with it on my end. And I know I sort of said my piece. It'll go deeper into that. So please feel free to throw in your 2 cents.
This is another one where I'm torn. I'm torn because I get why they're doing it. And you think intuitively, like, oh yeah, like if ladder seasons lasted 2 months, it takes a lot of pressure off that climb, because it's like, man, you feel like you just got to like really hammer at it, because it takes a while to climb up, even for good players. It takes a week or 2 sometimes to climb up, and that's a lot of pressure to just sit there and hammer away at it for hours on end all day long. So it's nice to know that you can like spread that out over 7 or 8 games a week instead of 10 games a week. So there is that side of it, but I agree. Like for me, it would be frustrating that the one thing that I get recognition for every month is if I can make the leaderboard, and now you're cutting that in half. That's kind of a kick in the teeth. So it's a delicate balance, and we've seen this before with Blizzard when they have to make a decision when it comes to balancing these like two choices between playing towards the the 5% hot top end of players versus playing the 95% masses. They're gonna play to the masses every time, because it's a financial decision. To be frank, it's a financial decision, and so it makes sense that they're doing it, because they want to make it more accessible. But I think that if we look at the model of professional sports across the world, the professional sports like football, baseball, soccer, whatever you want to look at, they make the game. They reward players for being good at the game, and they penalize people that tried to circumvent that, cheat or whatever. And I think that if you want to make the game more entertaining for fans, you make it as competitive as possible. And I think this is a change that makes it slightly less competitive, even though it makes it more accessible. So I think I lean towards disagreeing with it as well, but I get why they're doing it.
Yeah, it's tough. I think the reason that something like, because you can say, oh, but they're making a similar sort of position in standard where they really want to make the pro seem more accessible.
Right.
The issue with arena is arena does not have the player count and does not have the widespread.
Right.
Like standard is just, for a lot of people, is Hearthstone.
Yep.
For a lot more compared to other game modes. So
yeah. Oh yeah.
So that's what they have going against it. If it was a bigger population and you could see that, I think the change could be much more up to debate. But yeah, the fact that you've got this tight knit community, this much smaller area, and you're making them feel almost less pervasive maybe is not the word, but like you said, just recognition.
Right.
These are people who have core followers who are very passionate about the format. It's tough. So yeah, interested to see the polls open for another 17 vote. We'll return to it next week, but yeah, that's.
I definitely want to look at it again next week to see if anything changes between now and next week, if people have a chance to like actually get that, because the announcement was just made earlier today, so a lot of people probably aren't even aware of it. So this is one that I want. We post a Twitter poll question every week, but this is one I actually want to go back and revisit because I'm curious if we get some more votes on it. So we might even retweet this one just to get a little extra.
Yeah, there we go. That as boost. Doing your squats.
Yeah. Oh man. All right then. So yeah. So other than that, I think just a couple of reminders before we leave. Remember that the VODcast will be up on the EO YouTube page. We're still working on getting it up on the Eternal Orbit website, along with the True Podcasts. Those should be coming out here pretty soon. Don't forget that you can still get into the HCT pick your champion.
There you go. Took the words out of my mouth.
Pick your champion for the HCT finals next week.
Yeah. Who did you vote for again?
I voted for Muzzy.
And I'm on the Viper train.
Train. Yeah, I was almost there, but I was like, I want to go Muzzy. Yeah. Viper's a great.
Muzzy's
Viper's a great player, though. Look at us complimenting each other's picks. But we're gonna be gloating when the other one does better than the other one. So.
Oh yeah, it's gonna be a real sort of nose on the hand on the nose.
Oh yeah, I can't wait to neener you all day
long. Yeah, and if you do vote in that, however your you get additional packs. Also, if you do watch the tournament, the HCT World Championship, for more than 4 hours for each stream, you will get Rostcon Rumbles packs, and you will be eligible to do this. They're kind of doing a random dump of 2,500 cards per stream that are classic cards. You'll be eligible to just be gifted
packs.
Classic packs. Yeah, classic packs. There we go. So when you log in, all of a sudden you'll have a fun little gift. So yeah, all the more incentivation to. Is that the right word?
Sure.
Let's say it is. And yeah, so that also make sure you log in between today and the 21st. As we mentioned, it's Ignoble Garden or Noble Garden, however to talk about it, where you'll be getting two free golden Mechano eggs, Paladin 08, that gives you then a Mechanosaur, I think 8/8, as well as 2 Boomsday packs. So free stuff just for logging in.
Which is always nice, considering they give the least free stuff of like any card game around. So it's nice whenever they want to give us some stuff. Yeah, which were dust for me because I already had golden ones, but I got 2K dust for it, so that's pretty sweet.
Exactly.
Not complaining about that.
And really, last thing I think that I wanted to shout out again, we mentioned earlier, but our good friend, teammate, Blumplunk, is going to start putting out daily videos. Anyone here who's watching who's part of NA, maybe like myself, who you don't get to watch much of Blumplunk streams because you're usually asleep or it's your morning, you're driving to work. You'll be able to now keep up with the content. Blump will be doing daily videos, as I mentioned, that will all, for the most part, be based around a deck that they're playing for that day and analysis on how to play that deck, sort of going over mulligans, matchups, all that sort of things. It's a nice way to keep up whether or not you can catch up with the streams.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing those because I catch probably 2/3 of his streams just because I don't sleep, but I catch about 2/3 of his streams and I always love watching his insights. So it'll be cool to have those out there for sure. So yeah, I think we covered all the basic stuff. Make sure you keep up with EO on all of our various social medias, our Twitter, our website, eternalorbit.gg, our Patreon, our Twitch page, all the other members of the team. We're all streamers. Keep in touch. Thank you so much for being here, everyone. Eric, we somehow managed to go over by 30 minutes longer than we wanted to.
Yeah, holy cow.
But that just means we're given that extra bonus.
or we spent maybe a little too long talking about Token Druid and Bomb Warrior.
Well, you know, when you're passionate about something, you just like to beat it to death.
Brooke, watch out!
Oh, man. Wow. Touche.
I am Rude Clowns. My fabulous co-host, friend, Azrael as it gets.
And I'm Azrael as it gets.
Yeah.
Thank you guys so much for being here. We will be back next week, Wednesday, 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific. We'll be joined once again with Mr. Exiles Rhythm, who is the normal third host on this show. And until next time, guys, we will see you around. Take care.
Buy the merch and stay rude.